Victoria Grant's face went white when Edward pulled Jamie against him and calmly declared, "Jamie is mine." Jamie nearly choked. She had only asked this impossible stranger to pretend to be her boyfriend for a little while, not claim a bond wolves considered sacred. Then Victoria's eyes changed, Edward's voice turned dangerously quiet, and Jamie realized their fake relationship was hiding something far more serious. Whatever Edward had come to Pinewood to uncover, someone was already desperate to stop him. Prologue. A scream shattered the silence of the winter night. Victoria's breath caught as frost crystallized in the air before her. Only minutes earlier, she had been staring across their resort town, a place that usually looked as perfect as a Christmas snow globe. Tonight, it felt different. Wrong. The giant Christmas tree in the town square rose like a dark shadow against the storm. Victoria pulled her coat tighter, but the chill crawling over her skin had nothing to do with the weather. For years, their winters had grown warmer. Snow had become too scarce to keep the slopes open properly, and the Grant pack had watched its resort sink closer and closer to ruin. Then, this season, everything changed. Storm after storm had rolled over the mountains, each one colder than the last. And now came that scream, raw, terrified, primal. Victoria knew immediately what had caused it. Their desperation had caused it. Her alpha had interfered with forces none of them truly understood, because he had been determined to save the resort. What had they done? Another scream rang through the town, bouncing between buildings until it seemed to come from every direction. "What's happening?" a man beside Victoria asked. He was human, one of the resort guests. His face had gone pale beneath the strange, diffused light. Before Victoria could answer, movement appeared beside the Christmas tree. A young woman stumbled into view. She lurched forward like a wounded animal. "Steph!" another girl screamed. Victoria's stomach dropped. Her wolf's hackles rose. They had wanted tourists. They had wanted the resort prosperous again. But not like this. Edward Carver would celebrate if he ever learned what they had done. The ruthless alpha had been waiting for the Grant pack to weaken for years, circling their territory and buying pieces of their business whenever he could. Now they had handed him the perfect weapon. The screaming girl collapsed into the snow. Victoria rushed forward with the gathering crowd. "Are you hurt?" she asked, dropping beside her. "What happened?" The girl's eyes were wild, haunted. "It's Steph," she whispered through chattering teeth. "Someone call the police," a man shouted. Useless, Victoria thought. What could human authorities possibly do against the thing the Grants had unleashed? "What's your name?" Victoria asked. "Jamie." Jamie looked directly at her. Her terror was unmistakable. "She's frozen in the cave," Jamie whispered, "like ice, like a statue." Victoria's heart stopped. No. Jamie could not be allowed to tell anyone else. "The lady in white," Jamie gasped, clutching Victoria's coat. "She took her." Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. Jamie broke into frost-edged sobs while Victoria looked toward the black mountains towering above the town. Then Victoria forced herself to breathe. She turned to the man beside her. "Poor thing is hallucinating," she said quietly. The man immediately nodded. Of course he did. Hallucinations were far easier to believe than the truth. For now, Victoria had only one job: make certain no one believed Jamie Matthews. Not one word. Because if anyone discovered what Jamie had really seen, the Grant pack was finished. Chapter 1. 3 years later, Jamie Matthews winced as her sister's voice exploded through the phone. "Are you freaking kidding me?" Jamie was hiding in the tiny back room behind the resort bar, the only place with a landline and even a little privacy. Through the open door, the main room glowed with Christmas lights and firelight. Skiers and tourists filled the tables, talking over the clink of glasses after a long day on the slopes. It should have felt cozy. Instead, Rebecca's voice cut straight through the holiday atmosphere. Stella has been talking about seeing you for weeks, Rebecca continued. She even made you a present. What am I supposed to tell her? That her Grinch of an aunt prefers a room full of drunk customers to her own niece? Jamie closed her eyes. Someone in the bar turned up the television. Look, a customer shouted. They're talking about the resort. We're on the news. You can tell Stella I'll visit for her birthday, Jamie said. I work at a ski resort, Becca. Christmas is our busiest season. The tips practically pay my bills for the rest of the year. On the television, a reporter stood outside Pinewood Resort. Tragedy struck Pinewood Ski Resort 3 years ago when 24-year-old Stephanie Burke disappeared. Jamie's stomach tightened. Of course. Every Christmas. Every single year. The broadcast cut to old footage of Jamie herself. 21 years old. Mascara streaking down her face. Terrified. Begging people to believe her. Why did they always use that particular clip? Nothing said Christmas quite like replaying the worst night of her life. Several patrons glanced toward the back room. Recognition spread across their faces. Jamie turned away. Here's an idea, Rebecca said. Get a job closer to your family. We have bars here too. Becca, you can't hide at that resort forever. I'm not hiding. I like it here. It's more appealing than the private suite I booked for you in the Bahamas. I never asked you to book me a room. Jamie heard her sister sigh. This is supposed to be a family holiday. Come on. What about Grandpa Joe? Rebecca demanded. He isn't going to be around forever. The mention of their grandfather hurt worse than Jamie expected. Before Steph disappeared, family holidays had been easy. Everything had been easier. Then another voice came through the phone. Jamie, honey, is that you? Jamie straightened. Her mother. Crap. Mom, I didn't realize you were there too. Is everything okay, sweetheart? Jamie forced cheerfulness into her voice. Why wouldn't it be? It's the most wonderful time of the year. Honey, you don't have to pretend with me. A pause followed. Jamie already knew what was coming. Are you still taking your medication? Yep. The lie came easily. She had stopped. The pills made her exhausted. They made her feel like a distant version of herself. And after 3 years, she was done living that way. I have to go, Jamie said quickly. Big crowd. Everybody needs drinks. Love you. She hung up before her mother could ask anything else. Jamie stood there for a moment, breathing through the pressure in her chest. Then she fixed a bright smile on her face and walked back into the bar. Conversation stopped. Every eye followed her. Jamie did not have to look at the television to know her younger self was still there, crying and insisting that she had seen something impossible. A drunk ski instructor named Dave stared from the counter. Oh shit, he said. It's her, crazy Jamie. Jamie grabbed the remote and switched channels. Mariah Carey appeared on MTV, singing her new Christmas single. Jamie doubted anyone would even remember the song next year. Dave leaned toward her. Did you really see some ice lady freeze your friend? Jamie ignored him. For a moment, she considered taking one of her pills. Then she remembered she had flushed them down the toilet. Steph's frozen face flashed through her mind. Not real. Jamie repeated the words silently. Dr. Goldberg had explained it countless times. Stress, extreme cold, altitude, trauma. Her mind had created images because she could not process what was happening. That was all. It had to be. And yet, whenever Jamie closed her eyes, Steph was still there, frozen, terrified, staring back at her. Chapter 2. I have to admit, Victoria, I was surprised you agreed to meet me. Edward Carver lifted an eyebrow across the hotel lounge. Victoria Grant remained exactly as beautiful as he remembered. Elegant, cold, perfectly controlled. She suited the luxury resort she was expected to inherit one day. Except Edward intended to make certain she never did. One way or another, Pinewood would eventually belong to him. The lounge surrounding them was old-world wealth, distilled into architecture, leather chairs, crystal chandeliers, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking white mountains. Victoria swirled her wine. You have quite the reputation, Alpha. Her use of his title was smooth. They say you have absolutely no interest in finding a mate. Edward took a measured drink of Bordeaux. One has to settle eventually. The lie tasted bitter. He certainly could not tell Victoria why he was truly here. Jonah had disappeared. Jonah had once belonged to Edward's pack before moving to Grant territory to be with his mate. No one had heard from him properly in months. Edward intended to learn why. If Victoria and Richard Grant were involved, Edward would finally possess enough leverage to force them to surrender the territory he had spent years trying to acquire. Pressure from your pack? Victoria asked. She leaned forward. Her scent was sharp and wintry. Owen has been persistent, Edward admitted. At least that part was true. A useful lie always contained a little truth. Something changed in Victoria's posture. More fluid, more deliberate, predatory. She signaled for another drink. In that case, she said, holding his eyes, perhaps we should stop wasting time. Edward smirked. Straight to mating? That seems premature. I would never dare, Alpha. The bartender placed fresh wine in front of them. Edward's nose twitched. Something about the bouquet seemed wrong. Before he could examine it, Victoria spoke again. How long are you planning to stay? As long as necessary. I assumed you'd want to be home for Christmas. If the town weren't covered in those ridiculous decorations, I might have forgotten Christmas was coming at all. Victoria raised an eyebrow. It's 3 weeks away. I don't celebrate much. Edward paused deliberately. Though I was hoping to see Jonah while I'm here. Victoria's smile barely changed. Yet her eyes did. He would have loved to see you. He always spoke fondly of you. Edward almost laughed. Fondly? Jonah used to shake whenever I entered a room. Victoria's fingers slid over Edward's hand. The contact felt strangely pleasant. That alone should have warned him. Edward disliked casual touch. Always had. You make it sound as though I definitely won't see him, Edward said, pulling his hand away. Something flickered across Victoria's face. Surprise. Annoyance. Perhaps both. He's on holiday. With his mate? Of course. Jonah and Ree haven't even been mated for a year. You couldn't separate those two if you tried. The room suddenly felt warmer. The chandelier lights blurred pleasantly. Everything softened around the edges. Edward found himself smiling. Jonah was fine. Of course Jonah was fine. Why had Edward been concerned? You, however, Victoria said, studying him, look rather flushed. Do I? Her smile sharpened. They say you've forgotten how to have fun. Victoria leaned close to his ear. You know what I think? Edward struggled to focus. What? I think the reason you haven't mated isn't because you're selective. No? No. She smiled. I think it's because you're boring. Edward closed his eyes. Boring? That was absurd. Surely he could be interesting if he wanted to. What was I saying? He asked. His tongue felt heavy. The chandelier lights had acquired glowing halos. You were saying you wanted to take me upstairs, Victoria replied. Her foot brushed his leg beneath the table. Edward frowned. Had he said that? He did not remember saying it. But Victoria seemed certain. So perhaps he had. His enhanced hearing caught purposeful footsteps approaching. A hotel employee stopped beside them. Excuse me, Mr. Carver. Your assistant is on the telephone. He says it's urgent. Victoria touched Edward's arm. Take it in my office, it's more private. That sounded sensible. Everything Victoria had said for the last 10 minutes sounded sensible. The walk to her office felt far longer than it should. Behind him, Edward vaguely heard Victoria instructing the clerk to route any other calls away from him. That seemed important. He could not remember why. Victoria's office was glass and chrome, moonlight streaming through enormous windows. Edward dropped heavily into her chair and picked up the telephone. What? Sir, I have the Richardson papers. Their people are demanding a decision tonight regarding the timber rights and… Sam stopped. Sir? Edward stared at the ceiling. Doesn't everyone demand answers? Silence. Did you hear what I said? Of course. Another pause. Are you feeling okay? Perfectly. You sound… drunk. Edward might have taken offense if he had possessed the energy. I'm not drunk. I had 2 glasses of wine with Viola. Victoria? Edward frowned. Pretty sure it was Viola. Sam's voice sharpened immediately. Where are you? Edward looked around. Her office, I think. Alpha, listen to me, get out of there. You're the one who called. I think you've been drugged. Edward stared at a crystal paperweight on Victoria's desk as light fractured through it like ice. Sir? Stop shouting. You're in danger. The panic in Sam's voice finally cut through the haze. Edward's training reacted before his drugged thoughts could. Pain. Pain could clear his head. He slapped himself hard. Not enough. An ornate letter opener lay beside the phone. Edward grabbed it and drove the blade into his thigh. Agony exploded up his leg. For several precious seconds, the fog lifted. Window. Run. He could do that. Edward launched himself through the glass. The window exploded around him. Cold air struck his face. Snow softened the impact when he hit the ground. He forced himself up and staggered away from the hotel. The lights of the town below promised safety, but they swam in and out of focus. Then Edward saw the tree. A massive pine. Old. Twisted. Its branches stretched against the sky like reaching fingers. Something about it felt wrong. Important. Edward stepped toward it. The ground disappeared beneath him. He fell. He hit hard. Darkness swallowed him. Edward slowly realized he had landed in some kind of underground passage. The air smelled ancient, damp, and stale. His self-inflicted wound throbbed, the pain keeping him barely conscious. Water dripped somewhere deeper inside. Then Edward saw someone. A young girl stood motionless in the shadows. Even through the drugs, every instinct told him she should not be there. Miss? No response. Are you all right? Edward approached. He reached for her shoulder. His fingertips met something impossibly cold. Smooth. Perfect. Like glass. Like ice. Edward stared. The girl was frozen solid. Her face remained preserved in an expression of startled peace, as if she had drawn one breath and become crystal before she could release it. Chapter 3. Pinewood glittered beneath an ocean of Christmas lights. Garlands wrapped every lamppost and doorway. Jamie felt considerably less festive while hauling a heavy trash bag toward the dumpster behind the bar. Her family was probably preparing for the Bahamas. Her mother would be checking the luggage for the 3rd time. Rebecca and Mark would be trying to get an overexcited Stella into bed. Grandpa Joe was almost certainly attempting to repair the ancient camcorder he had broken years ago and refused to throw away. Jamie knew they did not believe her excuses about work. Their concern had become suffocating after Steph disappeared. What Jamie wanted was simple. A quiet Christmas. A quiet life. Maybe a strong drink. Excuse me, miss. Jamie spun around. A stocky, middle-aged man hurried toward her, waving a photograph. I'm looking for my daughter. Have you seen her? He thrust the picture toward Jamie. A teenage girl with long dark hair smiled shyly at the camera. Jamie studied it. Sorry, I don't think so. She handed it back. I hope you find her. Jamie turned toward the bar. A clammy hand locked around her wrist. I know you were friends with Stephanie Burke, the man said. The girl who vanished 3 years ago. Maybe my daughter is with her. If you could tell me what you saw that night. Jamie ripped her arm free. I already told the police everything. The man's expression changed. His worried father act slipped. Jamie's skin prickled. You're a reporter. Another girl has vanished from this resort, he argued. 3 disappearances in 3 years that we know of, all without a trace. That suggests a pattern. Nobody asked you. Stephanie disappeared too. Steph is fine. She sends postcards. Even saying it made Jamie uncomfortable. The cards never sounded like Steph. The handwriting was too neat. The messages were too careful. They were always mailed from places Steph once said she had no interest in visiting. Jamie had not heard her friend's voice in 3 years, had not seen her, but everyone insisted Steph was fine, so she had to be. The reporter opened his mouth again. Suddenly, someone grabbed the back of his collar and hurled him face first into a snowbank. "Fuck off," a deep voice slurred. Jamie stared. A man stood between her and the sputtering reporter. He was tall enough to be ridiculous. Dark hair curled against the collar of what had probably been an extremely expensive suit before snow and something else had ruined it. A rough shadow of stubble sharpened an already unfair jaw. But his eyes caught her attention most. Amber brown, flecked with gold. His pupils were so dilated they almost swallowed the irises. "Thank you," Jamie said cautiously. The stranger did not respond. He was staring up at the Christmas lights above the bar, as though they were the most fascinating things he had ever seen. "Sir?" Jamie waved in front of him. "Are you okay?" He swayed. Jamie instinctively slipped beneath his arm to keep him upright. Up close, he smelled of cedar, pine, expensive wine, and far too much of that last one. "Who are you?" he asked, sounding genuinely confused. "I work at the bar." Jamie pointed behind her. She definitely had not served him. She would have remembered him. The stranger squinted. Then he gently tapped the tip of her nose with one finger. "Oh." He sounded pleased. "You're not made of ice." Jamie's heart stopped for half a beat. "I'm not what?" But he was already staggering away. Jamie stared after him. Coincidence. That was all. A drunk, beautiful stranger had made a random comment about ice. It meant nothing. Unless. Jamie ran after him and grabbed his arm. "Wait, please, did you see someone made of ice? Where?" He smiled down at her with the patient superiority of a man absolutely convinced of his own intelligence. "Your hair looks like fairy lights." Jamie blinked. Fantastic. She was interrogating someone who could barely stand. Maybe she really did need another appointment with Dr. Goldberg. "Has anyone told you you're very small?" the stranger asked. "You're like a pocket-sized person." Jamie glared. "Has anyone ever told you you're freakishly tall? Like a..." Her brain failed. "A gorgeous supermodel?" "Excellent response, Jamie." Then the Christmas tree lights illuminated his leg. Dark stains covered his pants. Jamie froze. "Sir, you're bleeding." "Am I?" He looked down with mild curiosity. "Don't tell Sam, he gets twitchy." Jamie pinched the bridge of her nose. She could not leave an injured, intoxicated tourist wandering through the snow, especially not after he had saved her from the reporter. "I live around the corner," she said. "Come on, I'll look at the cut." This had absolutely nothing to do with caves or frozen women. She was simply being a responsible citizen. "You're very bossy for someone so small," he complained. He still let her guide him home. Jamie supported him up the narrow stairs to her duplex above the bar. "I'm practically a doctor," she said, mostly to fill the silence. Well, I was going to be. 3 years of medical school should count for something. She did not know why she was rambling. Probably nerves. Her apartment was modest but comfortable, with exposed wooden beams and warm colors. Staff housing came with the job, which was a blessing in an expensive resort town. "Sit." Jamie pointed to her second-hand couch. The man obeyed and immediately became fascinated by the crocheted blanket folded over the back. Jamie opened her first aid kit. "I should warn you, I never actually finished medical school, after Steph disappeared." The stranger's head snapped up. His eyes suddenly looked sharp. Jamie went still. Had she brought another reporter into her home? Number. His movements remained too loose. His pupils too blown. Nobody could fake being this intoxicated. Jamie helped him remove his jacket and tried not to notice how broad his shoulders were. She failed. It wasn't really a disappearance, Jamie said, mostly because talking distracted her. Steph got dumped that night. I made her come to Spiders. That's the club higher up the slope. Her fingers trembled. She was crying. Drinking too much. She ran out into the storm. I followed her, but I lost her. The memory came anyway. The humming. The cave. Steph's face. Beautiful. Terrible. Frozen. Jamie closed her eyes. I was outside too long. I found a cave, or thought I did. She shook her head. None of it was real. Post-traumatic stress. That's what my therapist called it. My mind invented things. Why was she telling him this? When Jamie looked up, the stranger was staring at her. A cave, he murmured. Then his focus drifted. Poor kid's probably still in there. Jamie's breath caught. He was rambling. He had simply heard her mention a cave. That was all. There was humming, he added sleepily. A sad song. Jamie dropped the first aid kit. She had not told him about the song. The melody flooded her memory, soft and haunting, echoing through the cavern while Jamie stumbled through darkness calling Steph's name. Without realizing it, Jamie gripped the stranger's arm. He looked at her solemnly. For one irrational second, she thought he was about to explain everything. Then he looked around her apartment. Your place is very small. Jamie rolled her eyes. Don't move. She returned to his injured leg. Then frowned. The bloody tear in his trousers was still there. The wound was not. Only smooth skin and dried blood remained. It healed. The stranger chuckled. Of course. What do you mean, of course? I stabbed myself at least an hour ago. Jamie looked up sharply. You stabbed yourself? Their eyes met. That was when Jamie realized just how close they were. It had been a very long time since she had been this close to an attractive man. Actually, she was not sure she had ever been this close to anyone this attractive. Christmas lights threw soft shadows over his face. His cheekbones were ridiculous. Jamie felt her face warming. If you're fine, you should probably leave. His smile became knowing. Should I? His fingers brushed her jaw. Then he leaned forward and nuzzled her neck. Jamie gasped. What are you doing? His breath warmed her skin. Can I ask you something? He sounded painfully drunk. Do you think I'm boring? Jamie swallowed. Oh, definitely not. She should get him out immediately, before she did something catastrophically stupid, like climb him. His wrists brushed slowly across her skin in an odd, deliberate pattern. Jamie should have stopped him. She did not. There, he murmured, sounding satisfied. You're safe now. Safe from what? He sank back into the couch with a lazy smile. His eyes drifted closed. Don't fall asleep. Won't. He fell asleep immediately. Jamie stared at him. Then she pulled the knitted blanket over his body. Anyone wearing a Rolex like his probably had no reason to rob her. She brushed her teeth and tried to process the evening. Her family, the reporter, the missing teenager. Now this bizarre, beautiful man sleeping on her couch after talking about a frozen girl in a cave. Jamie needed sleep. She was halfway to her bedroom when she heard it. Humming. Her entire body froze. The stranger was humming in his sleep. The exact same melody. The song Jamie had followed through darkness on the night Steph vanished. It had to be a coincidence. Maybe the song played somewhere in the resort. Maybe tourists heard it in one of the stores. There had to be a normal explanation. Jamie went to bed anyway. But the uneasy weight in her stomach never disappeared. Outside, heavy snowflakes began drifting through the night, sparkling like tiny stars. Interlude, the spirit. She watched him stumble into her hollow beneath the ancient pines. She watched the wolfman speak to her newest friend, the girl who had cried so beautifully before winter took her. The frozen girl did not answer. They never answered once the cold preserved them. Blood stained the spirit's snow. His scent was unlike the others, wild. Sharp, pine needles carried on winter wind, not human. She drifted closer when he collapsed beside the frozen girl. His breath clouded the darkness. Even unconscious, warmth radiated from him. Such strange warmth for someone whose heart felt almost as frozen as her mountain peaks. Most who saw the spirit were afraid. This one merely dreamed. Dark lashes rested against pale cheeks. His breathing rose and fell steadily. Beautiful, she thought. Beautiful in the way storms were beautiful. But he could not remain here. The same cold that preserved her companions would eventually kill him, wolf or not. She had watched too many creatures die searching for the friends she had gathered. This one should live. The spirit lifted him in arms made of snowfall, gentle as first frost. She carried him away. The great Christmas tree in town glittered like the crystal roof of her cavern. A suitable place. Colored lights painted his face as she lowered him beneath the tree. Before leaving, she wrapped winter around his body only long enough to force him toward consciousness. His eyes fluttered. She dissolved into mist and shadow. But she lingered. He looked confused, lost, so much like her, this wolf wearing a man's body. The cold was rising. She needed to return to her caves and her silent friends. Yet she watched him longer than she should have, wondering why this one felt different, wondering why his frozen heart seemed to call to hers. Chapter 4. Edward woke on an unfamiliar couch with cinnamon invading his senses. He opened his eyes. Exposed beams, mismatched furniture, cheap rustic decor. His wolf bristled. This was definitely not the 5-star suite he had booked at the Grant Hotel. Memories returned in fragments. Victoria smiling, Sam's frantic telephone call, the drug, the window breaking. Then, a girl, frozen in ice. Edward pressed his fingers to his temples. Oh, good. You're awake. His attention snapped across the room. A petite blonde woman stood watching him. Her hair was short. Her pajamas were possibly the ugliest clothing Edward had ever seen. A shapeless brown disaster somehow too large and too small at once. He was briefly offended that anyone would willingly appear before him dressed that way. Who are you? The woman's eyes narrowed. Jamie. Her scent sharpened with indignation. Spring rain. Citrus. Something else Edward could not immediately identify. He assumed she belonged to the Grant pack. I need a phone. Jamie blinked. Excuse me? A phone. Edward spotted a bedroom. In there? She nodded. He started toward it. Coffee would be appreciated. Jamie stared. Excuse me? Black. No sugar. He almost closed her bedroom door in her face. Then another breath of her scent stopped him. Spring rain, citrus, human, entirely human. Edward turned. How had he missed something that obvious? Worse, his own scent clung intimately to hers. A memory surfaced. Jamie kneeling beside him. Concern in gray eyes. Edward rubbing his wrists against her skin. Marking her. His stomach dropped. He had scent-marked a human woman who had no idea what he had done. Should he apologize? Humans did not understand scent marking. Jamie probably did not even know she should be offended. Where exactly are we? He asked. Are you connected to the local pack? The what? Edward's unease sharpened. You brought me here. Yes. Then surely you know who I am. Jamie stared at him as if he had suffered brain damage. How the hell would I know? Are you famous? Edward swore silently. She truly had no idea. Even human employees at the Grant Hotel had been told Edward Carver was an important guest. This woman was not Grant staff. Why did you bring me into your home? I've been asking myself that since you woke up. Edward stared at her. She was a tiny, unknowing human, incapable of defending herself, and she had willingly taken an unknown man home. Have you no common sense? Jamie's mouth fell open. What if I were dangerous? Are you? Well, no, but that is not the point. Jamie planted both hands on her hips. A simple thank you would have been enough. Edward's lips twitched. Anyone from his world speaking to him that way would know better. But Jamie was human. She had no idea she was arguing with an alpha. I'm trying to understand why I'm here. Jamie's expression softened reluctantly. Last night, a journalist was harassing me. What? Would you let me finish? Her scent spiked with irritation. You got rid of him. You were completely disoriented afterward, and I couldn't leave you outside. I was not completely disoriented. Jamie gave him a look. Edward had no memory of how he behaved, which weakened his argument. You didn't have to help me, she said. But you did. It was kind. Edward blinked. Nobody had called him kind before. Probably because he was not. I'm not kind. And bringing a strange man home was foolish. Try not to choke on all that gratitude. Edward walked into her room. How about that coffee, sweetheart? He closed the door on her outraged expression. His enhanced hearing caught her mutter, pretentious ass. To his irritation, Edward almost smiled. He called Owen. Fresh snow pressed against the bedroom window. Below, smells of beer and fried food drifted upward from Jamie's bar. High on the mountainside, the Grant Hotel gleamed in the daylight. Exactly where Edward should have been. Instead, he was standing in a human woman's cramped apartment wearing a destroyed suit. It's me. Oh, thank fuck. Owen's relief crackled through the receiver. Sam has completely lost his mind. He claimed the Grants captured you and set a trap, and he wanted us to storm the resort. He isn't entirely wrong. Edward touched the frosted glass. Something had happened last night. Something involving the Grants. Sam is already headed your way, Owen said. Richard claims you simply disappeared. He didn't sound especially concerned. That interested Edward. When are you coming home? We need to deal with the merger. Coffee filled the apartment with a rich smell. Edward tracked Jamie's movements through the wall. I'm not coming home. Silence. Jonah is still missing. Victoria says he's on holiday, which is nonsense. And she drugged me. She did what? Owen's growl vibrated down the line. Alpha, that's cause for war. Don't be dramatic. Edward looked through the bedroom doorway. Jamie was measuring coffee. Those atrocious pajamas had ridden slightly up her legs. Edward forced his attention back toward the window. I don't think they intended to make me disappear. More likely they wanted to compromise me or distract me. From what? That's what I intend to discover. Owen sighed. The Grants say that if you're not serious about courting Victoria, they want you off their territory before sundown. Edward's wolf bristled. A low growl rolled through his chest. We cannot leave while Jonah is missing. We don't even know that he is missing, Owen replied. He left our pack willingly to live with his mate. It's not our problem. He's Sam's brother. You're too soft on the pup. He isn't a pup. Owen laughed. Exactly. Stop treating him like one. Perhaps get a pup of your own, which would require finally taking a mate. Not this again. You need an heir, Alpha. Well, if I ever take a mate, I'd prefer to be conscious for the experience. Owen became serious. You may need to keep pretending you're courting Victoria if you want to remain there. The Grants aren't stupid. After last night, they'll know you're investigating something. Edward straightened. Did something else happen? Beyond you being drugged? Yes. Another person disappeared from their resort. A pause. A human girl. Not their problem. The phrase should have satisfied Edward. Instead, an image flashed through his mind. A teenage girl, frozen in a cave. How is that not our problem? Edward demanded. If several disappearances are connected to shifter territory, human authorities will eventually begin investigating things they shouldn't. Owen went quiet. What makes you certain the Grants are involved? Because if they weren't, they would have asked neighboring packs for help. Edward ended the call. The television played quietly in the other room. When he emerged, Jamie stood motionless in front of it, the coffee pot forgotten in her hand. Her scent had changed. Fear. Natalie Sawyers was last seen 2 days ago while staying with her parents at Pinewood Resort. the news anchor said. The disappearance marks another unexplained case connected to the resort. Edward approached slowly. A teenager is missing, Jamie whispered. Her face had gone pale. Edward barely noticed. He was staring at the television. A photograph filled the screen. Dark hair, young face. Warm smile. Edward knew her. He had seen that exact girl the night before, frozen beneath the mountain. Chapter 5. Jamie stared at Natalie Sawyer's picture, alive. Warm. Smiling. For a second, the image seemed to become Steph instead. Jamie squeezed the postcard in her hand. Miami. Having a blast. Miss you. The handwriting was too careful. Nothing like Steph's chaotic scrawl. Jamie told herself that did not matter. Just like Jeff, the ski instructor who disappeared the previous year, did not matter. People left. That was what Dr. Goldberg had told her. Sometimes people simply disappeared from your life. Upstairs, water began running. Her mysterious guest had apparently decided her shower belonged to him too. Jamie should have been more worried about letting a stranger roam freely through her apartment. Instead, she could only stare at Natalie's face. 15 years old. Last seen walking toward her hotel room. Steph had vanished after leaving Spiders. Jeff had disappeared during a late-night ski run. A violent pounding came from the downstairs door. Jamie jumped. Hopefully not another journalist. Then a familiar voice drifted through the wood. I told you fools we should have warned Jamie before coming. She might not even be home. Jamie froze. Grandpa Joe? No. Impossible. Then Rebecca replied. If we warned her, she would have told us not to come. Jamie's eyes widened. Her mother joined in. That isn't a very nice thing to say, baby. Oh, God. A small face appeared in the front window. Gray eyes widened excitedly. Aunt Jamie. Stella waved. Jamie weakly waved back. Her mother's face appeared beside her. Honey, there you are. Open the door. Jamie unlocked it. The full Matthews family crisis response team stood on her porch. Her mother, Carol, still wore a bright floral dress beneath her coat, completely inappropriate for the snowy mountains. Grandpa Joe leaned on his cane, his retired ranger jacket thrown over a Hawaiian shirt. Rebecca looked perfectly assembled despite traveling. Mark stood behind her with his usual expression of a man attempting to maintain peace. 6-year-old Stella bounced between them. Start caroling! She immediately launched into a wildly off-key version of Jingle Bells. Only Mark joined her. What are you all doing here? Jamie ushered everyone inside. Grandpa Joe kissed her cheek. If you won't come to the Bahamas comes to you. Her mother squeezed Jamie's shoulder. What your grandfather means is that we all took time away from work because we wanted to spend Christmas together. That includes you. We'd rather be here than on a beach without you. The guilt landed exactly where Carol intended. Jamie watched everyone spread through the bar. Stella ran toward the jukebox. Mark inspected the craft beers. Rebecca dragged a finger across the bar as though conducting a cleanliness inspection. You are happy to see us, aren't you? Rebecca asked. Of course. Jamie hugged them. Her mother held her slightly too long. We thought we'd stay with you, if that's okay. Unless you'd rather we book rooms at the hotel, Rebecca added. Jamie resisted an eye roll. Let's go upstairs. I'll make breakfast. They climbed toward her apartment with suitcases banging against walls. The duplex had always felt unnecessarily large. Now it felt suffocating. What's that? Mark pointed toward the television. Natalie Sawyer's photograph remained on the news. Jamie lunged for the remote. Too late. Carol went pale. Someone's missing? Rebecca looked at Jamie. Don't tell me this is why you refused to leave. Because another person disappeared? Jamie dug her nails into her palms. There it was again. Concern mixed with judgment. Everyone waiting for her to break. Let's calm down, Grandpa Joe said. Carol ignored him. Honey, I told you staying at this resort wasn't healthy. I am healthy. The answer came sharper than Jamie intended. I didn't know Natalie was missing when I decided to stay. The news came out this morning. How could that possibly be why I refused the trip? Silence. Only Stella hummed. Then another sound became painfully noticeable. The shower. Jamie frowned. Why was the shower? Oh God. The man. She had forgotten him. Aunt Jamie, Stella asked innocently, why is your shower running? Before Jamie could invent anything, Rebecca noticed the expensive Italian shoes beside the couch. Her gaze snapped toward Jamie. Do you have someone here? No. Jamie's voice climbed an octave. Grandpa Joe picked up the tailored jacket. What's this? Grandpa? Jamie snatched it away. How was she supposed to explain this? Hi, Mom. I brought home a bleeding stranger who talked about frozen women, and then hummed the song from my psychotic episode. Perfect. Carol suddenly inhaled. Her expression changed. Hope. Bright, almost manic hope. Baby. Jamie's stomach dropped. Do you have a boyfriend? What? Is that why you didn't want the Bahamas? You wanted to spend Christmas with him? Carol looked so delighted that Jamie might as well have announced an engagement. Grandpa Joe's eyebrows rose suggestively. Must be serious. Guys, no, it's not. The bathroom door opened. Steam drifted through the room, and Jamie's stranger stepped out wearing only a towel. His dark hair was wet and disordered. Without his ruined suit, there was absolutely no hiding the powerful width of his shoulders, or the carved definition across his torso. Water slid over his chest. The towel hung dangerously low. Jamie stared. So did everyone else. Do you have any clothes I can borrow? He asked casually. Then he noticed the frozen family. His expression suggested a king had discovered peasants inside his private chamber. Hello. Jamie moved. Nope. She grabbed his arm. No, absolutely not. She dragged him back into the bathroom. As the door closed, Rebecca whispered loudly to Mark, no way that's her boyfriend. He's way too hot for her. Chapter 6. Edward braced both hands against the bathroom sink while steam clouded the mirror. The shower had cleared his head. Not completely. His metabolism was still removing whatever Victoria had given him. But enough. 2 disappearances were now confirmed. Natalie and Jonah. Possibly more. A missing ski instructor. Another tourist. The Grants had never warned neighboring packs. They had requested no help. That made no sense unless they already knew what was happening. Territory was sacred to wolves. Nothing happened inside an alpha's land without eventually reaching him. Victoria's attempt to drug Edward now seemed less like seduction and more like a desperate effort to push him away from the truth. Then there was the cave. The frozen girl had been far too detailed to dismiss easily. He needed to find that place again while sober. But first he needed a reason to remain on Grant territory. Investigating possible crimes was unlikely to persuade Richard Grant to extend his invitation. Edward opened the bathroom door to ask Jamie for clothes. Instead, an entire family stared at him. Their scents carried surprise, curiosity, appreciation. Edward recognized Jamie's coloring in most of them. The dark-haired male was obviously an in-law. A small child peeked from behind the adults. Do you have any spare clothes? Edward asked Jamie. Her face turned pink. Hello, Edward added politely. His mother had raised him properly, even if she had never prepared him for this exact situation. Jamie seized him and dragged him back into the bathroom. Edward heard the younger woman whisper through the door. No way that's her boyfriend. He's way too hot. Edward frowned. Boyfriend? Jamie stood in front of him, clearly struggling to look anywhere safe. You wanted something? Edward asked. Yes. Her gaze fixed stubbornly over his shoulder. Edward belatedly remembered humans had strange sensitivities about nudity, yet her scent had also sweetened. Her pulse was faster. His wolf noticed. Edward ignored the pleased reaction that stirred inside him. I have a request, Jamie said. Go ahead. She inhaled. Would you pretend to be my boyfriend? Edward stared. For a little while, she rushed to explain. My family thinks we're together. If I tell them the truth now, they'll start hovering again. A couple days, or a few hours. You shake some hands, lie about our first date, then I tell them you had to leave for business. You never see us again. Edward's first instinct was immediate refusal. He had missing people to find. A potentially criminal alpha family to investigate. A supernatural cave to locate. Then he reconsidered. A relationship with a local resident would give him an excellent reason to stay. The Grants could hardly order him away if he claimed to be courting someone in town. Jamie was human. Completely disconnected from pack politics. Perfect. I'll do it. Jamie had already started apologizing. No, you're right. It was ridiculous. She stopped. What? I'll pretend to be your boyfriend. Jamie stared. Edward's mind moved faster. Simply claiming they had started dating would not be enough. They had met the previous night. No wolf would consider that sufficient reason for an alpha to defy territorial boundaries. But a fated mate? No shifter would ever question a fated bond. It was sacred, rare, absolute. Jamie was human. She would never understand the difference. Brilliant. Why would you agree? Jamie asked. Nothing actually happens between us, right? Her nervousness made Edward feel slightly guilty. He would need to tell her something. It helps me too, he began. Rebecca knocked. Are you two planning to hide in there forever? Jamie's scent spiked with panic. Edward almost smiled. Let's go. He took her hand. Jamie yanked back. What are you doing? She pointed furiously at his ruined clothes. Get dressed. You are not meeting my family half naked again. My pants are torn. Jamie stared at him. Edward felt that was a perfectly reasonable explanation. Apparently she disagreed. Chapter 7. Morning sunlight turned the snow into a field of diamonds. Jamie glanced at Edward as they approached the chairlift. Even wearing borrowed boots with his destroyed designer suit, he moved like a man who had never doubted where he belonged. Jamie caught her own reflection in a shop window. Puffy lavender snow boots. Unflattering winter coat. She looked like a marshmallow walking beside royalty. No one would believe they were dating. Her family already barely had, especially after Carol asked her boyfriend's name, and Jamie had stared blankly until the stranger answered for himself. Edward. His name was Edward, who agreed to fake date someone before learning his name. Jamie slipped on the chairlift platform. Edward caught her with one hand. Careful. Maybe nobody noticed. Edward looked unconcerned. Her family would notice eventually if Jamie did not improve their story. We need to get to know each other. Why? Because we're pretending to be in a relationship. The chairlift carried them upward. Edward barely listened. His gaze tracked the snowy terrain below. What do you do for fun? Jamie asked. He looked too serious to have fun. I must have used this lift last night. Jamie sighed. How did we meet? At your bar. Who asked who out? Edward shrugged. You did, obviously. That finally got his attention. Obviously. Jamie gestured between them. Look at you. Why would you ask me? Edward blinked as if genuinely confused. Jamie gave up. Do you know about any caves around the Grant Hotel? He asked. Ice ran down Jamie's spine. She did not want to think about caves. Not with Natalie missing. Not with memories of Steph waiting beneath every thought. See that? Jamie pointed ahead as the hotel emerged through the mist. A stunning blonde woman was walking toward the lift platform. That's Victoria Grant. She runs the resort for her father. You don't say, Edward murmured. Oh my God, she's coming over. Victoria's smile was perfect. Hello, Edward. I'm pleased to see you survived the night. Where did you disappear to? Jamie's stomach dropped. Her employer knew her fake boyfriend. Edward's expression became pleasant in a way that did not reach his eyes. Here and there. Victoria's gaze sharpened. Should I have the staff pack your things? Edward stiffened. That won't be necessary. His hand settled against Jamie's lower back. This is Jamie. We met last night. Victoria looked at her, then inhaled subtly. Her ice blue eyes widened. Did you scent? I did, Edward interrupted. His smile became dangerous. I've grown rather fond of Jamie. From the moment we met, I felt an extraordinary connection, almost as if our souls recognized each other. Victoria went pale. Your souls? Her voice tightened. You mean she's your fated? That's right. Edward's arm tightened around Jamie. Jamie is mine. Jamie nearly squeaked. Mine? When had fake boyfriend become supernatural ownership? And I'm not leaving, Edward finished. His grin showed teeth. Tell me when my assistant arrives. Victoria growled. Actually growled. The sound lifted the hairs along Jamie's arms. Then she stormed away. Jamie remained frozen against Edward. Something was happening. Something she did not understand. She didn't believe it, Edward murmured near Jamie's hair. What? Edward turned her to face him. She didn't believe us. Why do you care? His mouth came close to her ear. I'm investigating Victoria and her father. Jamie recoiled. What? Edward covered her mouth. Be discreet. Jamie slapped his hand away. Don't talk to me like that. Frustration broke through his aristocratic composure. I'm going to kiss you. Jamie blinked. Excuse me? Victoria isn't stupid. Your nervous rambling is making this less convincing. What if I don't want you to kiss me? Edward's expression immediately changed. Then I won't. His answer was absolute. But if you want this arrangement to work, Jamie grabbed his scarf and pulled him down. Their mouths met. Edward was so much larger that the first moment overwhelmed her. One hand spanned her waist. The other cradled the back of her head. Jamie felt protected, contained, almost claimed, but his kiss was controlled, measured, as though he were completing a task properly rather than wanting her. Irritation rose with the heat in Jamie's chest. She slid her fingers into his hair and pulled. Edward made a rough sound, real, spontaneous. His control cracked. His mouth opened against hers. His grip tightened. For one dangerous second, Jamie felt him press into her, as though he had forgotten every reason this was supposed to be fake. Then he stepped away, straightened his jacket. Thank you for your cooperation. His voice was slightly rough. He did not meet her eyes. Far behind him, Victoria watched. Her eyes were glowing gold. Jamie could have sworn they had been blue seconds earlier. Chapter 8. The marble and dark mahogany of the hotel lobby should have helped Edward regain control. Instead, he could still taste Jamie. Her scent clung to him. His wolf was entirely too interested. People were missing. Jonah needed to be found. Edward had responsibilities. He could not afford to be distracted by soft lips and defiant gray eyes. Alpha! Sam rushed across the lobby. His usually immaculate clothes were wrinkled. Dark circles suggested he had not slept. Thank God. I've been searching everywhere. Are you hurt? Do we need a doctor? When Owen told me not to worry. Sam. Normally one word stopped him. Not today. Jamie appeared beside Edward. You can relax. He spent the night having very interesting conversations beside the fire. Edward narrowed his eyes. Not with me, Jamie added, mostly with himself. Sam's face brightened with relief. You found him? Edward already disliked where this was going. Jamie smiled. You talk in your sleep, big guy. I do not. You hum too. Edward went still. Hum. The melody. The cave. Thank you for rescuing him, Sam told Jamie. The pack would be lost without. She did not rescue me. Jamie waved him off. My pleasure. More or less. She extended her hand. I'm Jamie. Sam automatically reached for it. A growl left Edward's chest. Sam froze. then immediately dropped his posture in submission. Apologies, Alpha. Miss Jamie. Jamie frowned. For what? I would never presume to touch what belongs to our Alpha. Jamie looked between them. What language are you people speaking? Edward redirected the conversation. Jamie, make a dinner reservation for us and your family tonight. Her eyes narrowed. Are you dismissing me? We need to maintain appearances. Fine. She stabbed a finger into his chest. But this had better work both ways. Jamie marched away. Sam watched her in awe. No wonder she's your mate. She doesn't let you order her around. She is not my mate. Sam turned. What? I told Victoria she was. I needed a reason to remain here. Edward explained the fake relationship. Sam looked completely bewildered. But Victoria said, I lied. Edward's attention drifted toward Jamie arguing with the concierge. Morning light turned her short hair gold. He stopped himself. He had more important concerns. So she isn't your mate, Sam repeated. Obviously not. Edward hardened his voice. Can you imagine the inconvenience? Sam shifted awkwardly. Being human would make things difficult. Edward did not want to discuss it. I need to find the cave. He lowered his voice. I saw Natalie Sawyer last night, frozen in ice. Sam paled. Frozen? I don't know what happened to her, but I intend to find out before the Grants realize I've discovered anything. I'm coming. No. Alpha, you stay here and watch Jamie. Go where? Jamie appeared beside them. Sam jumped. Business, Edward said. Jamie glared. We're supposed to learn enough about each other to fool my family. Sam knows me extremely well. Edward gestured toward his assistant. He can tell you whatever you need. Sam opened his mouth in horror. Jamie beat him to it. Did you just delegate our date to your assistant? It's efficient. Edward walked away before her anger could affect him. Behind him, Jamie produced several impressively creative curses. His wolf wanted to turn around. Duty came first. Always. Edward followed traces of his own scent through the snow. Victoria's drug. Blood. Pine. Frost. And beneath it all, Jamie's spring rain scent still clinging to his skin. The farther Edward traveled from the hotel, the more unnatural the silence became. No birds. No small animals. No movement. Then came the sensation of being watched. Edward stopped. His wolf rose beneath his skin. Nothing appeared. Then he saw it. The twisted pine. Its branches bent at impossible angles. The sight triggered memory. Music. Falling. Darkness. A trapdoor lay beneath the snow. It looked new. Recently replaced. Someone had covered his tracks. Edward tore it open with extended claws. Darkness waited below. The cave smelled of ice, stone, and something ancient enough to make his wolf growl. Edward descended. Natalie? Only dripping water answered. The frozen girl was gone. Someone had moved her. Then, through the echo of his voice, Edward heard singing. Soft. Sad. Familiar. He was no longer convinced he was alone. Interlude. The spirit. The wolf returned to her hollow. He searched for the frozen girl, but the other wolves had already taken her. They always did that. They stole the spirit's friends and hid them where winter could not reach. Grief moved through her like a blizzard. Yet this wolf had returned alone, not with his pack, not with those who guarded the mountain. He searched as if something lost mattered to him. The spirit drifted closer. His soul fascinated her. So still, like a lake frozen to its deepest point. No movement, no ripples. Beautiful numbness. She recognized it. Her song moved through the cavern. He heard. His head lifted. His eyes searched the darkness. She remained hidden. Not yet. He was not ready. The cold had not reached deeply enough into his heart, but someday, she thought. Soon. Chapter 9. That evening, The hotel restaurant shimmered with Christmas lights and evergreen garlands. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the snowy slopes. The scent of pine mingled with something that reminded Jamie of her mother's sugar cookies. She used to love Christmas. Steph had too. They had spent holidays working together at the resort. Until the night Steph disappeared. Left, Jamie corrected herself. Steph had left. Maybe Natalie Sawyer had simply left too. Jamie adjusted the dress she had borrowed from Rebecca. At least it fit. Now she only needed to convince everyone she was madly in love with a man she barely knew. A man who had delegated getting to know her duties to his assistant. Jamie still did not understand why Edward had agreed to this arrangement. She knew it had something to do with Victoria and Richard Grant. But Edward had vanished for most of the day. Now he stood beside the dinner table, welcoming Jamie's family, as if he had personally arranged the entire evening. His hand settled against Jamie's back. "You look beautiful," he murmured. The softness in his voice momentarily disarmed her. Then he pulled out her chair. Jamie sat awkwardly, bumped the table, and nearly toppled several wine glasses. Edward calmly straightened everything, as though nothing had happened. His brief smile reminded her of the half-asleep man on her couch. Fine. Maybe he was not the absolute last person she would date. Third from last. On a good day. "Thank you for having dinner with us," Rebecca said. "Meeting an entire family at once probably wasn't what you imagined for the holidays." Jamie recognized that tone. Courtroom Rebecca. "It's my pleasure," Edward replied smoothly. "You cannot truly know someone until you understand the people they love, and I want to know everything about Jamie." Carol almost cried. "Did you hear that? He's family-oriented." Jamie wanted to laugh. According to Sam, Edward barely considered hobbies, meals, or relaxation efficient enough to deserve time. "What do you do?" Grandpa Joe asked. "Investment management, mainly. My family owns several businesses." Carol looked ready to schedule a wedding. Edward somehow knew details about everyone. Carol's tutoring work, Rebecca's recent legal victory, Grandpa Joe's years as a ranger. Jamie strongly suspected Sam had prepared a complete dossier. Edward spoke to Grandpa Joe about conservation and changing winters. The resort had struggled because warmer seasons meant less snow. Jamie watched her entire family fall under Edward's charm. She wished she had even half his confidence. "So how did you two meet?" Grandpa Joe asked. Jamie looked at Edward. She could almost see him constructing some polished romantic story. She smiled. "He showed up completely wasted at my bar. I felt sorry for him and let him sleep on my couch." Silence. Every head turned toward Edward. For once, Mr. Perfect had nothing to say. Jamie enjoyed the faint color spreading across his cheekbones. "That was generous of you," Carol finally said. Jamie leaned back. "Well, I couldn't let him freeze to death." Rebecca grinned. "You were hoping to sleep with him, weren't you?" Jamie choked. "What?" Everyone except Edward burst out laughing. "Nobody blames you for taking your opportunity," Grandpa Joe said. "Oh my God." Jamie covered her face. Karma. She had tried embarrassing Edward and had destroyed herself instead. When she looked at him, expecting amusement, Edward remained serious. "I realize I never properly thanked you." His voice was quiet. The table fell silent again. Edward met Jamie's eyes. No calculation, no false charm, only warmth. "Thank you, Jamie." For a second, everyone else disappeared. Jamie forgot the fake relationship. Forgot her family. Forgot why any of this had started. Then Grandpa Joe raised the menu. "Right, who's hungry?" Dinner became surprisingly easy after that. Jamie relaxed. For once, her mother laughed with her instead of analyzing every word for evidence of instability. Even Rebecca softened. It felt good. Dangerously good. Jamie wondered how long they could continue pretending. Her family would be hurt when the fake relationship ended. A hotel employee approached Edward and whispered about an urgent phone call. Edward excused himself. Carol sighed dreamily after he left. "He's charming. And rich." Grandpa Joe added. Grandpa, it doesn't hurt. I can pay my own rent. Carol touched Jamie's hand. It's simply nice seeing you have someone you can rely on. Jamie stiffened. Rebecca set down her wine. Does he know what happened? There it was. Everything always returned to Steph. To the breakdown. What do you mean? Don't play dumb. If you want this relationship to work, he should know. Know what, Becca? Her voice sharpened. That I'm crazy? Is that what you're worried he'll discover? That is not what I said. Then say it. Jamie, Carol warned softly. What? That I'll ruin everything again? Carol's eyes filled with tears. Guilt and anger knotted inside Jamie. If me being myself isn't enough, then he isn't the right person anyway. She pushed back her chair. I need the restroom. Jamie escaped. Cold water on her face did nothing. She needed air. The terrace door opened. Winter wind struck her. Snow had started falling. Jamie crossed her arms over her thin dress. She understood why her family worried. They had watched her fall apart. They had sat through therapy, answered late-night panic calls. But Jamie wished, just once, they would look at her and see strength instead of cracks. She walked toward the terrace edge. The moonlit slopes stretched below her. Quiet, blue-white. Movement appeared between trees. Jamie stopped. A figure. Small. Female. Graceful. Her heart lurched. No, she was not hallucinating. Not again. The figure was real. What if it was Natalie? A frightened teenager lost outside. Hello? The figure paused. Jamie hurried down the terrace stairs. Her heels sank into the snow. Natalie? The temperature dropped. A melody touched the edge of her awareness. Soft. Sad. Searching. Jamie's instincts screamed at her to stop. She had lived this moment before. 3 years earlier. A song in a storm. A girl disappearing into darkness. Jamie continued walking anyway. Chapter 10. Edward stood near the hotel lobby fireplace handling pack business by phone. We liquidate the Thompson holdings before quarter end, he told Owen. Their new management is unstable. Fine. Now about the Martin-Richmond mate dispute. Edward pinched the bridge of his nose. That still isn't resolved? Sam hovered nearby. Mates rarely separate, Alpha. We do not have much precedent. I'm not a marriage counselor. Edward was already late returning to Jamie's family. If you both excuse me, I need to get back to my mate. The words slipped out naturally. Owen immediately stopped arguing. Edward filed that information away. Pretending Jamie was his mate might be the most effective method he had ever discovered for escaping pack bureaucracy. After ending the call, Sam frowned. You still haven't told Owen the truth. Why would I? Then he'll start demanding I return home or mate Victoria. Edward dismissed Sam and headed toward the restaurant. Strangely, spending time with Jamie's family required less effort than running his pack. The humans expected nothing from him. No ancient disputes. No territorial emergencies. No decisions affecting hundreds of lives. It was almost restful. He reached the table. Jamie's chair was empty. Her family looked miserable. Everything all right? Jamie went to the restroom, Rebecca said tightly. Grandpa Joe sighed. She got angry, too much worrying and meddling. Edward stood again. I'll check on her. Relief immediately softened everyone's faces. Interesting. Edward went toward the restrooms. No, Jamie. Her scent led toward the terrace. Anger. Fear. Something else. Something cold. The door stood open. Edward stepped outside. Jamie's scent crossed the snow. His wolf stirred. He was not worried about her. That would imply emotional investment. He was simply maintaining appearances. Then he saw her. A small figure running into darkness in a cocktail dress. Jamie. No response. Edward jumped from the terrace and sprinted after her. What was she thinking? Humans could die from exposure. That would make him look like an incompetent mate. Purely practical concern. Nothing more. Edward caught her around the waist. Where do you think you're going? Jamie twisted violently. Let me go. There's someone out there. Where? Edward searched. Nothing. Only Jamie's scent overwhelming every other trace. I can't see anyone. There was a girl. Maybe Steph. Maybe Natalie. Edward stiffened. Jamie was shivering. He removed his jacket and wrapped it around her. She barely noticed. I need to keep looking. No. Edward lifted her into his arms. Jamie protested. What are you doing? You're freezing. I'm taking you inside. But, then I'll come back and search. Jamie stared at him. You will? The wonder in her voice unsettled him. Of course, a teenager is missing. As he turned toward the hotel, music drifted over the snow. Edward stopped. His wolf rose. The sound was crystalline. Impossible. The same song. Jamie looked at him. You hear it too? Hope and terror filled her voice. Edward should have lied. Yes. Jamie sagged against him in relief. That reaction struck deeper than it should have. The song strengthened behind them. Edward tightened his hold and moved faster. Keep looking at me. Why? Just do it. For once, she obeyed. The haunting melody followed them until they reached the hotel. Chapter 11. Jamie knew immediately that returning unnoticed was impossible. Her mother went white. Grandpa Joe stopped eating. Rebecca entered full cross-examination mode. Jamie still wore Edward's jacket. Without his heat beside her, she could not stop shivering. Where were you? Bathroom malfunction. Rebecca stared. Jamie. There was someone outside. The family exchanged looks. Jamie's frustration surged. There really was. You went out alone wearing that? Grandpa Joe asked. I thought it might be Natalie. You should have told someone. I told Edward. He went back to look. Another loaded glance passed between Carol and Rebecca. Jamie hated those looks. I thought you didn't want him knowing about your episodes, Rebecca said. My episodes? Edward returned. I couldn't find anyone. I'll contact local police in case they have reports. Rebecca stood. That won't be necessary. Jamie was confused. No, I wasn't. You heard Edward. Nobody was there. Understanding hit Jamie. You think I hallucinated. The restaurant seemed to shrink. Carol suggested they go home. Tomorrow they could call Dr. Goldberg. Jamie stood abruptly. There was somebody out there. Their faces answered. Worry. Fear. That careful expression people used around someone unstable. Jamie was 21 again. Crying on television. Begging people to believe her. I believe you. Edward's voice cut through everything. Jamie looked at him. His eyes were steady. I believe you. Relief nearly took her legs out from beneath her. For 3 years, nobody had simply said those words. Rebecca looked at Edward. You shouldn't encourage this. Edward's eyebrow lifted. Rebecca explained. 3 years earlier, Jamie had become convinced Steph had been kidnapped. Their family had later received evidence Steph had left voluntarily. Jamie had suffered trauma. Jamie was tired of everyone talking around the truth. I hallucinated finding Steph in a cave. Edward's expression sharpened. Go on. I thought she was frozen in ice. Frozen? Jamie laughed bitterly. Yeah, completely frozen. There was a woman, too. She looked like she was made from snow. She sang. Rebecca grabbed Jamie's arm. We're leaving. Edward interrupted. Why don't you all head home? Jamie can stay with me tonight. Everyone stared. Rebecca recovered first. Why are you staying at the hotel if you're dating my sister? Romantic plans. Edward smiled at Jamie. I can cancel the champagne if she prefers. There was obviously no champagne. He wanted information. Jamie knew it. But staying with him still sounded better than another night of whispered discussions about her mental health. Fine. Edward handled the rest. The bill. Carol's concern. Rebecca's suspicion. He placed himself between Jamie and every worried question. Strangely, his lack of concern about her sanity felt comforting. The elevator carried them upstairs. His suite was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Expensive furniture. Everything precise. Edward removed his jacket. Start from the beginning. My therapist says. Who cares what your therapist says? Jamie flinched. Edward paced. Your therapist is clearly an idiot. Fire him. Tell me what happened. His blunt certainty almost hurt. Jamie shook her head. It doesn't matter. It wasn't real. It was. Sam burst inside. Alpha, I found. He stopped when he noticed Jamie. Edward waved him silent. Tell me. Jamie looked at him. At Sam. At two men acting as though the impossible story she had buried for years might matter. Hope rose. Jamie crushed it. She could not survive being wrong again. Why does this matter to you? Because people are missing. Edward pointed toward Sam. His brother, too. Jamie recognized the desperation in Sam's face. She had seen the same look in her own mirror for years. I'm sorry, she whispered. But I can't help. You saw something. It wasn't real. Jamie opened her purse. She pulled out one of Steph's postcards. My friend didn't disappear. She left. She writes to me. Edward took the card. Instead of disappointment, triumph flashed across his face. Sam. Sam examined it, then went white. It's the same. Jamie frowned. What? The same wording Jonah uses. Same places. Same kind of message. Sam's hands trembled. So Jonah really is missing. Edward looked at Jamie. Ree may be gone too. He lifted the postcard. You didn't hallucinate that night. Steph didn't write this. Jamie stared. There is something happening here. People are disappearing, and right now, you may be the only person who has actually seen what's taking them. Chapter 12. Edward watched anxiety move through Jamie's scent. Hope, fear, doubt. No. Jamie shook her head. It can't be real. Edward had been patient. He needed details. He crouched beside her chair. This is real. Why would anyone take Steph and leave an ice statue? I don't think it was a statue. Jamie looked up. Edward chose his next words carefully. I think it was Steph. She stared at him. Listen to yourself. He could hardly blame her. Her world did not include magic. He had to cross that barrier somehow. I saw someone too. Jamie went still. Natalie. Edward told her about falling into the cave. About seeing the missing teenager frozen. Jamie gave him a disbelieving look. You mean, the night you were too drunk to see straight? I was drugged. Jamie's entire expression changed. What? It's irrelevant. Who drugged you? Victoria. Did you call the police? Sam made a sound of disbelief. He doesn't need human police. Edward glared at him, then explained that he believed the Grants knew more than they admitted. Jamie paced. This is insane. Edward placed a hand on her shoulder. She moved away. People cannot turn into ice. What if your friend did? Edward asked. What if she's still out there and needs you? Jamie turned so fast that he immediately regretted the words. Tears filled her eyes. Don't you dare. Her finger shook. You have no idea how long I searched. How many police officers I begged. How many nights I stayed awake wondering where she was. Edward's wolf whined at her pain. He had pushed too hard. Jamie started toward the door. I don't want to see you again. I can prove it. She stopped. Sam looked alarmed. Edward had already committed. Jamie turned. How? I can show you how something impossible can still be real. What? Do you have an ice statue hidden somewhere? Edward smiled faintly. Magic. Jamie stared. Then sighed. Goodbye, Edward. Wait. She stopped again. Try not to scream. What? Sam looked horrified. Alpha. Edward reached for his wolf. The shift tore through him. Bones cracked, muscles reshaped. White fur replaced skin. Seconds later, a massive wolf stood in Edward's place. Amber eyes locked onto Jamie. She stared. 1 second. 2. Then she screamed. Chapter 13. Jamie woke in a luxury hotel bed. A man's voice carried from across the room. "Yes, Miss Matthews. She just woke up. We'll bring her back soon." Edward ended the call. Memories returned slowly. The snow, her family, the conversation. Then, a huge white wolf. Jamie groaned. "Oh my God." Edward approached. "How are you feeling?" "I had the craziest dream." His expression tightened. "What kind of dream?" "I dreamed you turned into a wolf." Silence. Jamie pulled the blanket higher. "Crazy, right?" "It wasn't a dream." Jamie laughed nervously. "Stop. I shifted in front of you. You panicked. We gave you something to calm down." Jamie stared. "No. I should have warned you properly. I've never shifted in front of a human. It was a hallucination." "It wasn't. Do it again." Edward blinked. "What? Turn into a wolf?" "Absolutely not. Do it, or I'm leaving." Edward gave her a long look, then shifted. Bones moved. His body transformed. A giant white wolf stood beside the bed. Jamie screamed and buried herself beneath the blanket. When she peeked out, the wolf remained there, watching patiently. Edward shifted back. His hands immediately caught her face. "Look at me." Jamie struggled to breathe. "Through your nose." His thumbs moved slowly against her cheeks. "Good. Now breathe out." His voice steadied her. The panic gradually receded. Then Jamie realized something else. Edward was naked. She whipped around. "Why are you naked?" "I tore my clothes when I shifted." "You could have warned me." "I did mention that shifters usually undress first." Jamie swallowed. Then curiosity beat embarrassment. "Could you change again?" Edward seemed surprised. Jamie needed proof. Proof she was not losing her mind. "Watch my face this time." She did. Admittedly, focusing only on Edward's face was difficult when the rest of Edward existed. Then he became a wolf again. Jamie stared. She slowly reached toward the white fur. "Can I?" The wolf sighed. Jamie sank her fingers into his coat. Soft, warm, completely real. A rumbling sound vibrated from his chest. Jamie almost laughed. It sounded suspiciously like purring. The bedroom door burst open. "Sir!" Sam stopped. Jamie cheerfully looked up. "Hello." Edward shifted back. "What does Owen want now?" Sam's eyes flicked downward. "Perhaps put on clothes first, Alpha." Edward glanced toward Jamie. She politely looked away. "Mostly." Sam smiled awkwardly at her. "How are you feeling?" "Better." Then Jamie remembered something. "Can you turn into a wolf too?" Sam shook his head. "I'm a shifter, but I wasn't granted a wolf." He explained that he had enhanced senses and strength but could not transform. Pain hid beneath his calm voice. Jamie's mind raced. "So there are more of you?" "Yes." "Vampires?" "Real." "Mermaids?" "Yes." "Loch Ness Monster?" "Myth." Jamie stared. Then the reality of Steph hit her. "If supernatural things are real, then Steph," Sam's expression answered. Jamie leapt from the bed. "I abandoned her." Edward re-entered dressed. "It wasn't your fault." "I let everyone convince me I was crazy. They all reinforced the same explanation. Anyone would begin doubting themselves." Jamie looked directly at him. "I'm helping you." Edward and Sam exchanged a look. "You are searching for everyone, aren't you?" "Yes," Edward said, "but I cannot promise they're alive." Jamie swallowed. "Then what do we do next?" "First, breakfast with your family before they start a search party for you." Edward indicated a box. Inside was an elegant white wool outfit in Jamie's exact size. Sam eventually left. Edward approached. "Before we go, come here." His warm hands caught Jamie's wrists. He rubbed his own wrists over her skin. Then his fingers moved toward her neck. Jamie's pulse accelerated. "What are you doing?" "Scent marking you." His thumbs brushed her skin. "You are supposed to belong to me. Other wolves need to smell my claim." Memory returned. Her couch, his drunken touch. "You did this that first night." "Yes. To protect me?" "It tells other shifters you are mine." Jamie's breath caught. "You told them I was your mate. My fated mate." "What exactly is that?" Edward smiled. "A soulmate, more or less. Every wolf has one, though actually finding them is rare." He traced her collarbone. "I told the Grants you were mine, so they wouldn't question why I refused to leave." Jamie remembered Victoria's golden eyes. "So I'm not actually your fated mate?" Edward laughed as though the question were absurd. "Of course not." He stepped away. The sudden absence of his warmth felt colder than it should have. Jamie watched him disappear into the bathroom. Her skin still burned beneath the places he had touched. Interlude: The Spirit. The spirit watched the wolf walk through falling snow beside the bright human girl, the same girl who had once cried for her frozen friend. They spoke about the spirit's companions, the silent ones she had gathered and protected beneath the mountain. But something had changed. The wolf's soul no longer resembled perfect winter. Warmth moved beneath the ice. Small, fragile, growing, and whenever the bright girl moved close to him, the warmth became stronger. The spirit did not understand. She only knew she did not like it. The wolf had once felt like her. Now something was thawing him. Chapter 14. Jamie asked questions the entire way down the mountain. Were the Grants shifters? Yes. How many shifters existed? More than humans realized. Fewer than wolves preferred. What exactly was a pack? Edward answered as efficiently as possible while steering the conversation toward the only subject that mattered. The night Steph disappeared. 3 years of therapy had buried those memories beneath layers of doubt. Digging through them hurt. "Steph and I went to Spiders." Jamie pointed toward the nightclub jutting from the mountainside. "She had just been dumped. She drank too much. She met a guy there. Could he be involved? I doubt it. He looked like a tourist. I never saw him again." They stepped from the lift. Jamie wore the white outfit Edward had bought. She looked like winter given human form, Edward noticed, then immediately became annoyed with himself for noticing. Jamie described Steph leaving the club. The man said Steph had gone home. Jamie went outside because she knew her friend was drunk. Instead of using the chairlift, she had walked toward the forest. "Why?" Edward asked. Jamie's face tightened. "Because I heard the song." Snow began falling harder around them. "I felt like I had to follow it." She unconsciously grabbed Edward's arm. He drew her closer. Something watched them from the whiteness beyond the trees. Edward could feel it. When they reached the bar, Jamie's family was upstairs. Anxiety sharpened her scent. "I can't wait to tell them." Edward stopped. "You cannot." Jamie turned. "You have to be kidding. Shifters remain hidden from humans for a reason. I could face serious consequences for revealing myself to you." Jamie's shoulders dropped. "Then why did you?" Edward had not prepared for that question. "I needed you to trust what you remembered." "Is that all? Isn't that enough?" Disappointment entered her scent. It hit Edward strangely hard. "Promise me you won't tell them." Jamie nodded. They climbed the stairs. The apartment had been transformed. Christmas lights covered almost everything. Garlands wound around railings. A tall tree filled one corner. Its decorations did not match at all. A crooked purple glitter star sat at the top. 2 tables overflowed with food. "Surprise!" Jamie's family shouted. Stella nearly vibrated with excitement. "You used to love Christmas," Carol told Jamie. We thought we'd bring some Christmas spirit back. Jamie smiled. A real smile. Edward watched. Stella pointed proudly toward the purple star. You made that for Grandma when you were little. Edward thought it might be the ugliest decoration ever created. Jamie looked at it as if it were priceless. Perhaps these traditions served a purpose he did not understand. Then glitter fell onto the floor. No. Still impractical. Eat, Grandpa Joe ordered. That's a family value. Edward approached nutrition as fuel. Measured portions. Balanced intake. Food did not require emotion. Then Carol placed waffles in front of him. I'm fine, I don't eat much sugar. Stella tugged his sleeve. You have to try my gingerbread cookie, Uncle Edward. I am not your uncle. Stella ignored this. And no, thank you. She pressed a badly shaped cookie directly against his mouth. Edward froze. Butter. Sugar. Warm spices. His wolf reacted with embarrassing pleasure. Stella grinned. How is it? Not bad. Want another? Edward hesitated. His nutritional principles fought with newly acquired information. Yes, please. Jamie tried not to laugh. The entire meal confused Edward. No clear hierarchy. No one waited for the strongest person to speak. Everyone interrupted everyone. Plates moved constantly. Stories overlapped. Edward was normally the center around which every room revolved. Here, nobody looked to him for permission. Nobody needed his judgment. At first it was unsettling. Then Edward realized something. The weight had disappeared. For a few minutes, nobody expected him to solve anything. Nobody needed him to lead. He was simply Edward. The feeling was dangerously pleasant. Carol touched his shoulder. Edward almost flinched. We hope our visit won't make you leave Jamie's place and go back to the hotel, Jamie protested. Mom, no, we insist, Carol said. We're happy to have you. Edward looked toward Stella, then Carol, then Jamie. These humans were completely defenseless against the supernatural danger surrounding the resort. That made protecting them his responsibility. Thank you, Miss Matthews. Edward used his most charming smile. I'm looking forward to spending more time with your beautiful family. Carol glowed. Call me Carol. Later, Edward carried his things into Jamie's bedroom. She watched nervously. Relax. I'm not actually sleeping beside you. Her shoulders fell. Edward was not sure whether that was relief. I'll spend most nights patrolling or working downstairs. Jamie frowned. When will you sleep? I don't require much. That sounds fake. Shifters function on little rest. Before Jamie could argue, Stella burst in and demanded they visit the Christmas market. Edward expected to hate it. Crowds. Overpriced objects. Artificial scents. Instead, Stella grabbed his hand and dragged him between stalls with such joy that resisting became difficult. By evening, Jamie returned to the bar for work. Edward prepared to meet Sam. Be careful, Jamie said. Concern sharpened her scent. It irritated him. He was an alpha, perfectly capable of protecting himself. Sam and I are going to Spiders. We'll retrace your route. Jamie looked disappointed. If we don't find anything, Edward added, we'll investigate together. Together? The pleasure in her voice caught him off guard. You're a key witness. And we're supposed to do couple activities, apparently. Jamie smiled. Her gaze followed him as he left. Edward blamed the sudden warmth beneath his skin on the building's heating system. At the chairlift, Sam joined him. They rode toward Spiders. Sam had contacted elders regarding supernatural beings associated with ice. Several possibilities existed. The nightclub overwhelmed Edward's senses. Flashing lights, perfumes, alcohol, humans grinding against one another and replacing partners casually. A woman wrapped her arms around Edward. Want to get out of here? I have a girlfriend. I don't mind. Edward frowned. When you finally give your heart to someone, I assume you would expect loyalty. So would they. The woman left, confused. Edward watched the human mating behavior around him. Jamie was human too. Would she treat loyalty so casually? The idea of another man touching her irritated his wolf. Outside, Edward found Sam. Do you think I need to tell Jamie I expect her not to wander off with random males while we are pretending to date? Sam stared at him. Edward decided the answer was obviously yes. They entered the forest. The quiet soothed him. Moonlight painted the snow blue. Then Sam slipped. He landed hard. Edward reached to help him. Stopped. Beneath Sam's body, ice spread in impossible patterns. Spirals, shapes, frozen lace. The designs seemed alive. Sam crouched beside them, excitement mixed with fear. Alpha. What? I think I know what we're dealing with. Edward did not like Sam's expression. It's not good. Chapter 15. Jamie wiped the bar counter for what felt like the 100th time. Only a few customers remained. Dave was among them, drinking tequila and passionately flirting with a woman who definitely was not the soulmate he had brought in last week. Jamie watched him. Would Edward behave that way at Spider's? The thought irritated her far more than it should. He was not actually her boyfriend. He could do anything he wanted. With anyone. Still, their cover story would become difficult if he started making out with random women. Especially Victoria. Victoria had drugged him once already. Jamie remembered Edward that first night. Confused. Vulnerable. Touching her without his usual restraint. Sam was with him. That should be enough reassurance. It was not. 5 minutes before closing, Jamie made a decision. She would go to Spider's. For investigative reasons. Obviously. She closed the bar at record speed and pulled on the expensive coat Edward had bought her. Warm as a cloud. The walk toward the chairlift brought memories of Steph. Jamie finally understood something she had dismissed 3 years earlier. Feelings could become serious quickly. Someone could get beneath your skin before you realized what was happening. She missed Steph painfully. Their Christmas shopping. Their terrible baking. The ornaments they stole from each other's trees as a joke. Guilt followed. 3 years of believing everyone else instead of herself. Snow thickened. The streets emptied. Then Jamie heard singing. Her first instinct was fear, but the melody wrapped around her. Loneliness lived inside it. A promise that someone understood. Jamie followed. The song became darker. She kept moving. Maybe Steph was there. Maybe Jamie could finally fix what she had failed to do. Steph? A woman appeared through the snowfall. Her body seemed made of starlight and snow. She stood with her back turned. One crystalline hand beckoned. Jamie reached toward her. Strong arms ripped Jamie backward. Edward spun her around. Fear filled his face. What are you doing? Jamie had never heard that emotion in his voice. Relief overwhelmed her. She threw herself against him. Thank God. Edward went rigid. Then awkwardly patted her back. When I saw you running, I thought... He stopped. Never mind. The singing disappeared. Edward carried Jamie back to the bar and placed her near the dying fire. He returned with a heavy blanket. Then, hot chocolate. I didn't make it, he clarified. There were leftovers. Jamie almost smiled. He could command entire rooms without effort and somehow become awkward over making cocoa. From now on, you do not go outside alone. There he was. You cannot tell me what to do. We know what may be freezing people. Jamie stopped. Well, Sam believes it's a nymph. A fairy? No. Fairies are real. Yes, but this isn't one. Probably an Oread, a mountain nymph. Edward explained that old records described nymphs with ice-related powers. What nobody understood was why one would attack humans. They normally remain hidden. Jamie tightened her hands around the mug. Yesterday, wolves were impossible. Today, mountain spirits existed. I still believe Richard Grant knows something, Edward said. He's the alpha here. Protecting everyone inside this territory is his duty. Jamie frowned. Alpha? The leader of a pack. Wait, your pack has one too? Edward looked at her. Jamie understood. Oh, you. That explained a lot. Authority seemed built into his bones. We need to find the nymph, Edward continued. Learn why it's doing this. Stop the disappearances, and determine why the Grants are hiding the problem. Jamie watched him. So we keep fake dating. If you don't mind. His hand briefly touched hers, then pulled away. I need a reason to remain here. Jamie studied the man who had carried her through the snow. The man looking for people he did not even know. I suppose I can endure it. For Steph. Gratitude softened Edward's face. Jamie almost felt guilty that Steph was no longer the only reason. Chapter 16. Over the following week, the Matthews family transformed the bar into what they called a winter wonderland. Edward thought Christmas had exploded. Stella forced tinsel into his hands. It's family tradition. Edward nearly reminded her he was not family. Then he saw Jamie laughing with Carol. Fine. He arranged the tinsel with military precision. Stella immediately moved everything sideways because it looked more fun. The days blurred. Ice skating. Christmas markets. Carol hugging anyone who managed a full turn around the rink. Mark and Rebecca feeding each other sugared almonds. Cookie baking. Grandpa Joe starting a flower fight that left white handprints across Edward's expensive shirt. You're supposed to enjoy it, Jamie told him, wiping flour from his cheek. Her fingers lingered. For appearances, Edward replied. Nights belonged to work. Edward shifted and patrolled the resort. No sign of the nymph. Sometimes he heard fragments of singing in the wind. Pack reports accumulated. Carol began watching him. You look exhausted, dear. I'm fine. His wolf had barely slept in 3 days. The Grants watched Edward and Jamie in public, so they maintained the performance carefully. His arm around her, her head against his shoulder. Frequent scent marking. Then Stella discovered mistletoe. Kiss. Jamie's lips tasted like hot chocolate. Edward kept the kiss exactly long enough to appear convincing. His wolf complained when she pulled away. Irrelevant. You need sleep, Jamie whispered late one night when she found him working. I need to finish this. Days passed. Edward began recognizing Jamie's morning clumsiness and catching her coffee before she spilled it. He found himself humming Christmas songs during patrol. He tasted cookie dough from Jamie's spoon because she claimed the Grants were watching. They were not. Edward knew that. He tasted it anyway. Sleep became theoretical. Patrol until dawn, breakfast with the family, pack business while Jamie worked. Fake boyfriend between everything. He began responding automatically when Carol fussed over him. Accepted beer from Mark. Allowed Grandpa Joe to teach him how to decorate cookies properly. The Matthews touched one another constantly. Hugging, laughing, leaning together. Easy affection. Edward's wolf had been trained around hierarchy, command, and control. It did not know what to do with warmth that required nothing in return. The mistletoe incidents suspiciously increased. Each kiss lasted longer. Softer. For the cover, Edward told himself. He ignored how often his scent remained on Jamie when nobody was watching. He ignored how home had started smelling less like his territory and more like pine, cinnamon, and spring rain. Somewhere between Stella's paper snowflakes and Jamie's sleepy smiles, the boundaries blurred. The nymph remained hidden. Edward's wolf became increasingly torn between hunting the threat and protecting the family. Both instincts felt equally important. He could no longer explain why. Chapter 17. The family was playing Monopoly when Jamie noticed Edward fading. He sat beside her, staring at the board as though human games were an unsolved military strategy. Guys, someone announced, we're out of marshmallows. The Matthews reacted as though disaster had struck. Edward looked genuinely confused. Grandpa Joe raised a fist. I refuse to live under these conditions. Val buy more. Edward went rigid. Jamie touched his knee. There's a store at the end of the street. People are everywhere. He'll be fine. Slowly, Edward relaxed. That alone proved how tired he was. The game continued. Jamie pretended not to monitor him. His shoulders curved forward. His normally perfect posture collapsed little by little. His head dipped. Each time, he jerked awake. Carol noticed too. Jamie sent her mother a warning glare. Do not say anything. Edward hated appearing weak. Stella gleefully bankrupted Mark. Then Edward's head settled against Jamie's shoulder. His breathing deepened. The room went silent. Jamie barely moved. The weight of him felt warm. His pine scent had softened with sleep. Everyone exchanged meaningful looks. Jamie ignored them. Edward Carver, the endlessly controlled, impossible alpha, was finally resting. Then the front door crashed open. The day is saved, Grandpa Joe shouted. Edward jerked upright. What's happening? He blinked in confusion. Is it my turn? Jamie considered murdering her grandfather. You woke Uncle Edward, Stella accused. Grandpa Joe stared at the marshmallows in his hand. I wasn't sleeping, Edward said. His voice was rough. A faint blush appeared. Jamie immediately saw the tension returning. Whose turn is it? She asked quickly. Edward relaxed slightly when attention moved away from him. But Jamie had reached a conclusion. He needed sleep. That evening, Carol cornered her. If you don't make that poor boy rest, I will. And you know I'm not above slipping something into his tea. Jamie laughed at the idea of Edward being called poor boy. Still, her mother was right. Plan A was reason. You could sleep while I work downstairs. I'm fine. Edward yawned while saying it. Plan B. After closing, Jamie found him in the back office giving orders over the phone while rubbing his eyes. I think my family is suspicious. Edward immediately focused. Why? Guilt crossed his face. Jamie almost abandoned the trick. Almost. They need to see us behaving more like a real couple, maybe retiring to bed together. Edward nodded with serious concentration. 10 minutes later, they wished everyone good night. The bedroom door closed. Edward immediately looked toward the window. How long before I can leave? Jamie resisted a groan. An hour. They're watching It's a Wonderful Life. She patted the mattress. Sit. Edward perched stiffly at the edge after meticulously removing his shoes. Jamie moved closer. I'm tired. His concern appeared instantly. You should have told me. I haven't slept well. Stress. Nightmares. I'm sorry. We'll find the nymph. Can you just hold me while I fall asleep? Edward hesitated. Then his arms settled around her carefully. Of course. Gradually, his breathing slowed. Jamie raised one hand and ran her fingers through his hair. Edward melted against her. A soft sound escaped him. Set your alarm, he murmured. I'll rest my eyes for a minute. Sure. His voice was already fading. Thank you. Then he slept. Deeply. Jamie smiled. Mission accomplished. She carefully escaped his arms and went downstairs. Sam was waiting. Where's the alpha? Asleep. Sam looked horrified. But we were supposed to patrol. Owen needs an answer about. Tell Owen where he can shove it. Sam stared. Jamie sighed. Give me the phone. Owen's growl exploded through the receiver. What do you mean he's asleep? He's a person, and people need sleep. He will call tomorrow. He's our alpha. Good night, Owen. Jamie hung up. Sam looked at her as if she had performed magic. No waking him. Yes, Miss Jamie. Sam suddenly looked almost militant. I'll ensure nobody disturbs him. Satisfied, Jamie went upstairs. Edward had not moved. Then she remembered one detail. This was also her bed. Jamie carefully climbed in beside him. Moonlight touched his sleeping face. She fell asleep. Hours later, morning sunlight woke her. Strong arms surrounded her waist. Edward's chest pressed against her back. His breath warmed her neck. For one moment, Jamie simply enjoyed it. Then she moved. Edward snapped awake. He recoiled as if burned. His hair stood in ridiculous directions. His eyes widened. What happened? Jamie blinked, then remembered what she had done. I was supposed to meet Sam. I know. You stopped him? And Owen. Edward's face transformed. You told Owen what? Jamie shrugged. He was being annoying. Edward looked close to murder. How dare you interfere with... Oh, stop. She sat upright. You were exhausted. I told you I don't need... Shut up. Yes, you do. Something almost desperate crossed his expression. You have no idea what people expect from me. That silenced her. He was right. Jamie knew almost nothing about the weight he carried. Edward's face became distant, regal, controlled. From now on, when I tell you to do something, I expect you to obey. Jamie stared. No. His eyebrows rose. I'm not your employee. I'm not part of your pack. I'm not even your real girlfriend. She moved closer with every accusation. You cannot order me around. Edward's pupils widened. Jamie poked his chest. I can do whatever I want, and you cannot stop me. A growl vibrated from Edward. But it sounded different. His eyes darkened. His gaze dropped to her mouth. Somehow Jamie had ended up nearly in his lap. His hands settled around her hips. You can't control me, she repeated, less confidently. Is that so? His thumb moved in slow circles against her. Jamie's heartbeat raced. Edward leaned closer. Tell me to stop. Jamie lifted her face. A knock hit the door. Edward, honey? Carol called. Your friend is waiting downstairs. The moment shattered. Edward moved back so quickly Jamie nearly fell. His expression closed. Every trace of desire disappeared beneath his perfect mask. Tell him I'll be down. He stood and straightened his clothes. Edward, we should discuss schedules later. The door shut behind him. Jamie fell backward onto the bed. Unbelievable. Chapter 18. Edward had suffered enough humiliation for one morning. Waking wrapped around Jamie, discovering she had cancelled his responsibilities as though he were an exhausted child. Facing her family afterward. But none of that occupied his mind as much as the moment in bed. Jamie furious, defiant, close enough that Edward could feel her breath. His wolf was restless, wanting. He descended the stairs while Jamie's scent followed him. Most pack members lowered their eyes when Edward's voice changed slightly. Jamie challenged him directly. It should have infuriated him. It did. Unfortunately, it also made him want to press her against a wall and discover whether she would remain defiant beneath his hands. Edward gripped the railing hard enough to make the wood creak. Madness. Jamie was human. Fragile. Temporary. His pack would see any fascination with her as weakness. Then he remembered the way she had looked at his mouth. Maybe taking her as a lover would strengthen the cover. He could be careful. Gentle. His wolf approved enthusiastically. What are you doing? Owen's voice cut through the fantasy. His beta stood in the bar. Judgment already radiated from him. Edward forced himself under control. This is going to be unpleasant, isn't it? You look like you need help controlling your human pet. Edward slammed Owen against the wall before thought could catch up. A snarl tore from him. Owen lowered his gaze. See? He said. You can't even tolerate hearing me remind you what she is. She is not a pet. She isn't your equal either. She doesn't have a wolf. Did you travel here just to state obvious facts? I came because I'm worried. Real fear entered Owen's scent. Fated mates can barely function apart once the bond forms. How are you supposed to lead with a human beside you? One accidental bite could kill her. The pack might not accept her. Something painful cracked inside Edward. Good thing she isn't actually my mate. Owen stared. What? I told the Grants she was so they would let me stay. Relief flooded Owen. For fuck's sake, why didn't you say that? I've been wondering how you intended to remain alpha while attached to that kind of liability, Edward's wolf growled. Obviously, you couldn't actually be fated to a useless human. Owen laughed. She couldn't survive your bite. She couldn't give you proper heirs. Thank God. Edward crossed the distance between them. Owen hit the wall again. Shut up. His voice carried deadly authority. Owen submitted. Edward knew Jamie was not his mate, not even his real girlfriend. That did not give Owen permission to speak about her like she was nothing. She is not useless. Owen's mouth twisted. I never said you couldn't sleep with her. Nobody cares if you... Edward tightened his grip. Know your place. Silence. Finally, Owen looked away. You can tell the pack not to worry about my non-existent mate. Edward released him. Now leave. Before I tell you about the encrypted message we intercepted. Edward stopped. Owen produced a paper. Coordinates. Time. The Grant Hotel. Tonight. Someone wants to meet us. Who? We don't know. The Grants were hosting a Christmas ball that evening. Owen smiled. Perfect opportunity. Parade your human around. Keep everyone watching you while Sam and I investigate. It could be a trap. So could everything else. Edward looked toward the stairs. Jamie's scent remained above him. Owen continued. You've been squeezing the Grant pack for years, buying their shares, their land. Once we expose whatever they're hiding, you can finish this. Demolish the resort, build the pipeline, take everything. We find Jonah and the humans first. Of course, if that matters to you. Edward looked at his beta. At the man Edward himself had trained to value victory above almost everything. A familiar philosophy. His own philosophy. For the first time in years, Edward felt ashamed of it. Chapter 19. Jamie barely recognized herself in the mirror. Rebecca fastened diamond earrings large enough to belong in a movie. Wow. Jamie touched one carefully. Edward really isn't messing around. She felt like someone playing dress-up in a life too expensive to be hers. Rebecca sprayed another rebellious section of hair. I never expected you to fall for the business tycoon type, Jamie thought of that morning. Edward angry. Edward vulnerable. Edward almost kissing her. She had missed him all day. His puzzled reactions to Christmas traditions. The way he secretly loved sweets. His attention whenever she spoke. When had he stopped being an annoyance? He's not my boyfriend. The confession escaped. Rebecca's hands stopped. Jamie looked at her sister through the mirror. It's fake, she explained. Edward had been a stranger on her couch. The family assumed. Carol looked happy. Jamie could not bear to disappoint everyone again. Rebecca listened. Then said calmly, I know. Jamie spun around. What? I knew you were lying. Because you think he's too attractive for me? Well, he is. Thanks. Mark was out of my league too, and look how that turned out. Jamie glared. Rebecca smiled. That isn't how I knew. Then how? The way you looked at Edward. There was attraction, definitely. But no warmth. Rebecca's expression softened. At first. Jamie went still. It's different now, she admitted. Now you're in love with him. Jamie buried her face in her hands. This is a crisis. Rebecca lowered Jamie's hands. You've always handled crises better than you think. She reminded Jamie of their father's death. Rebecca had fallen apart. Their mother had struggled. Jamie, only 6, had somehow kept finding ways to make everyone smile. You make people feel less alone, Rebecca said. You're strong. I'm sorry if we've made you feel otherwise. Jamie hugged her. It can't work with Edward. You don't know that. Rebecca did not understand. Edward was an alpha. His world contained wolves, ancient rules and dangers Jamie could barely comprehend. I'm going to lose him before I've really had him. Have you told him? What would that change? Maybe nothing. Maybe she wanted to see one genuine smile before everything ended. Should I tell him? Rebecca snorted. No. Make him jealous. Jamie stared. I'd rather be honest. I assumed you would. Rebecca turned her toward the mirror. The deep red dress Edward had selected moved like liquid fire. You look beautiful. Go get him. Edward waited downstairs with Sam and another man, Owen. He was nearly as imposing as Edward. Edward turned before Jamie reached the last step. His gaze moved over her. His eyes widened slightly. Owen smirked. She cleans up well. I'm right here, Jamie told him. You can speak to me. She took Edward's arm. Owen opened his mouth. Edward growled. Shut up. Jamie smiled. The ballroom looked magical. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, fairy lights. She spotted Victoria and Richard Grant. Richard waved warmly. Edward's arm immediately tightened around Jamie. You know him? He owns the bar. Technically, he's my boss. Richard had given Jamie work after Steph vanished. She had always considered him kind. Now she wondered whether that kindness had been calculated. Owen and Sam will search while we distract everyone, Edward whispered while guiding her into a dance. His lips brushed near her ear. We received a message telling us to come tonight. Jamie looked at him. How do I look? Edward frowned. What? Owen said I looked good. What do you think? Edward's body tightened. He did not say you looked good. Yes, he did. He wouldn't dare. Why? Because you're mine. The certainty in his voice stopped her. You don't own me. Perhaps not. His voice dropped. But everyone here must believe I do. Must they? Edward finally met her eyes. Something vulnerable appeared there. What are you asking? I'm saying the plan hasn't felt especially clear lately. Across the ballroom, Jamie spotted Owen and Sam slipping through a door. If you want a distraction, this is your opportunity. Edward swallowed. I didn't say I wanted. Shut up and kiss me. He did. At first, Edward remained careful, measured. Jamie bit his lower lip. Everything changed. His hands pulled her hard against him. Weeks of restrained looks and unfinished moments broke open. Jamie tangled her fingers in his hair. Edward's mouth became hungry. Urgent. The ballroom vanished. Only him. His heat. His body. His grip. When Jamie finally pulled back, his eyes glowed gold. Enough distraction, she whispered. Edward shook his head, then kissed her again. This one was even less controlled. A throat cleared nearby. Edward. Richard Grant stood several feet away. Edward growled. Edward. A word. Reluctantly, he released Jamie. His hand remained on her waist one extra second. Stay here. It sounded less like an order than a promise. Jamie nodded. Edward followed Richard away. Jamie stood dazed. That had not been fake. Nobody could manufacture the trembling in Edward's hands. Or the way he had looked at her. Her heart raced. She needed the bathroom. Maybe fix her makeup. Maybe breathe. Her thoughts remained completely occupied by Edward. His mouth. His hands. The look in his eyes. She never heard the footsteps following her. A hand clamped over Jamie's mouth. An arm locked around her waist. Don't make a sound. Victoria's cold voice touched her ear. And come with me. Chapter 20. Edward followed Richard through wood-paneled hallways. The older Alpha's office irritated him immediately. Photographs. Keepsakes. A worn leather chair. Images of Victoria at every age. Sentiment everywhere. Edward's office contained steel and glass. Designed for efficiency and intimidation. Richard caught him looking. This resort you're so eager to destroy isn't simply land. It's memories. People. Edward's mouth tightened. I understand what an alpha must do to protect his pack. Is that what you call systematically buying my company from beneath me? I offered solutions. You offered to take everything. Your pack could benefit from joining mine. And my daughter? I have no interest in sharing my throne, Richard growled. Then the telephone rang. He ignored it. Edward reached across the desk and answered on speaker. Owen? Yes, Alpha. Did you find who we were looking for? We found Jonah's mate. Edward smiled at Richard. And she has a few things to say. A woman's desperate voice filled the office. Richard, it's over. They know. Richard stared at Edward. You've been keeping Jonah prisoner, Ree continued. And you kept me locked up so I couldn't tell anyone. He is my mate. You can't hide him from me. Edward clicked his tongue. Separating mates. Even I know that's cruel. Richard ignored him. I told you before, Ree. I cannot help you. Then Richard looked directly at Edward. But perhaps Edward can. Edward's amusement vanished. What does that mean? Richard stood. Power settled around him. What I'm about to ask is not a favor. Edward almost smiled. Finally. The Alpha beneath the friendly mask. And what exactly could you threaten me with? Edward asked. My pack is stronger. I own a significant portion of your company. I have evidence you concealed supernatural attacks on humans. Richard's smile became predatory. I have your mate. Edward's blood went cold. If you want Jamie back, you will do exactly what I say. Chapter 21. Victoria dragged Jamie through darkness. Her heels slipped over ice. The temperature dropped with every step. Keep moving. They passed through a heavy door. A frozen corridor opened ahead. The walls looked carved from a glacier. Jamie's breath clouded. What is this? Quiet. Victoria shoved her onward. Then the passage opened into an enormous underground chamber, and Jamie saw her. Steph. The scream tore from Jamie. Her best friend stood frozen in the center of the cavern, exactly as Jamie remembered, one hand raised, fear trapped forever across her face. Jamie ran. She wrapped herself around Steph. Cold burned through the silk dress. I'm sorry, Jamie whispered. I'm so sorry. Then she saw more. Natalie, Jeff, a man Jamie immediately knew must be Jonah because he had Sam's eyes. Others too. All frozen. You're hiding them here? Victoria's face tightened. We don't have much choice with your mate digging around. Don't blame Edward. He's trying to save them. Victoria laughed. Is that what he told you? He's looking for Jonah. He's been trying to destroy us for years. Victoria's fangs appeared. He bought shares while pretending to help. He pushed our company toward collapse. He wants our land. Why? Because he can. Jamie shook her head. He says an alpha has to protect humans inside his territory. We've been trying. Victoria's voice echoed. But Edward Carver wants this resort gone. Jamie remembered Edward with Stella. Edward listening to Carol. Edward searching the mountains night after night. He's a good person. Victoria gave her a pitying smile. You really believe that? Yes. Then you'll enjoy what comes next. Victoria led Jamie through a hidden door. A security room stood behind the cave. Monitors displayed the hotel, lobby, restaurant, ballroom, Richard's office. Edward appeared on one screen. His face was colder than Jamie had ever seen. What is this? Victoria touched her shoulder. We're not going to hurt you. We need leverage. Sound filled the room. Richard's voice came through the speakers. I have your mate. If you want Jamie back, you'll do exactly what I say. Edward barely reacted. Or what? Do you want her frozen beside Jonah? Jamie held her breath. Edward smiled. I might care if Jamie were actually my mate. Jamie's stomach dropped. I suppose then I'd be obligated to worry. How inconvenient. Richard frowned. Edward continued. Fortunately, Jamie isn't my mate. I only claimed she was so you'd let me move around your territory. Jamie knew that. Of course she did. Still, hearing him say it like that hurt. Richard studied him. You didn't look indifferent when you were kissing her. Edward laughed. I never said I didn't find her attractive. I find your daughter attractive too. That doesn't mean I'll abandon my plans for a pretty face. Each word struck harder. Richard leaned back. So, whatever happens to Jamie, Edward settled into his chair. Do whatever you like. His expression never changed. See if I care. Chapter 22. Richard finally told Edward the truth. Years earlier, the resort had begun failing. Winters grew warmer. Snow disappeared. Tourists stopped coming. Money vanished. Richard's pack faced losing the territory. To me, Edward said. Richard glared. Yes, you were waiting to swallow whatever remained. Edward did not deny it. Then the snow returned, storm after storm. Edward leaned forward. How? You already know. The nymph. Richard nodded. Edward demanded details. How had Richard found it? How did he control it? I don't, Richard explained. As a child, he had heard stories that nymphs protected nature. When the resort neared collapse, he sought an elder who knew magic. One night, Richard walked into a bar to meet that elder. Except the doorway opened somewhere else. A bookstore. Another country. Possibly the United States. There he met a magician, a young man who said anyone arriving in his shop must have a wish powerful enough to bring them there. Edward frowned. And you wished for snow? I wished for a mountain nymph powerful enough to bring winter back. The magician agreed. For a price. What you loved most, Edward said. Richard nodded. Edward stared. And you accepted? What choice did I think I had? I was losing everything. The nymph appeared. Snow returned. Tourists returned. Then people began disappearing. The same creature saving Pinewood was slowly destroying it. Edward's expression hardened. Why kidnap Jamie? I need you to help fix what I did. Why me? One wish per person, no reversing your own wish. Richard had already tried. The magician would not, or could not, simply undo the bargain. You could wish for a solution, Richard said. Edward rolled his eyes. And if I refuse? You'll lose Jamie eventually anyway. I don't care about Jamie. The lie tasted worse every time. Richard laughed. You expect me to believe that? You won't hurt her. Edward's confidence returned. You're not cruel enough. Jamie told me how kind you were after Steph vanished. You watched everyone call her insane while knowing she was right. You felt guilty. Richard paled. Edward knew he had struck the truth. Still, Richard had a point about the nymph. Even if Edward took the land, the creature would continue endangering anyone who entered. Jonah remained frozen. Steph remained frozen. Natalie. Others. Edward rubbed his jaw. You said the magician cannot cancel the wish. No. Nothing can? Richard hesitated. If the magician dies, his wishes can be broken. If the person who made them wants that. Edward looked up. If he dies. Richard recognized Edward's expression. Wait. I'm not suggesting anything. Edward rose. I'm telling you what we'll do. His voice hardened. We kill the magician and end this. Chapter 23. Jamie watched from the security room. Edward discussed murder as casually as closing a business deal. Let's kill him and get it over with. Her hands shook. Richard looked uncomfortable. I don't know, Edward. You said he's dangerous. He is, but we need to free the victims. Jamie caught on that point. Steph, Jonah, Natalie. Was Edward thinking of them? Was he deciding one life could be sacrificed to save many? Or did he simply want the resort? Jamie could no longer tell. The man on the screen looked like a stranger wearing Edward's face. I'll do it, Edward said. I'll kill him, or die trying. Die trying. Jamie's chest tightened. She had not considered that possibility. The magician could kill Edward first. Then Edward extended a hand toward Richard. If I solve this problem, the resort becomes mine. Richard stared, then shook his hand. Jamie could not decide what frightened her more. Edward dying, or Edward surviving and proving she had never known him at all. Chapter 24. Edward stood before Richard's office door. According to Richard, If someone desired something strongly enough, certain doorways could lead to the magician's shop. Focus on what you want, Richard insisted. Edward imagined the resort, the land, the pipeline his company wanted, money, expansion. He opened the door. Hotel hallway. Nothing. Again. Same result. Richard became frustrated. You have to actually yearn for something. You try yearning on command. I already used my wish. Edward closed his eyes. Different approach. The frozen victims. Jonah. Steph. Natalie. Jamie's face appeared. Her relief if Steph came home. Her joy. Something pulled painfully inside Edward's chest. He opened the door. Still the hallway. Richard cursed. Don't you want anything? Edward almost laughed. He already had everything he was supposed to want. Wealth, power, respect, territory. Then Owen's words surfaced. She can't be your mate. Jamie walking away when the investigation ended. A future without her. Edward touched the handle. The door opened. Darkness. Books. Rows upon rows of shelves. Edward stepped through. Moonlight filtered through dirty windows. The store felt separated from ordinary reality. Too quiet. Edward's wolf rose near the surface. The magician could create supernatural beings through a wish. Edward imagined something ancient. Terrible. A creature wearing human skin. A floorboard creaked. Edward extended his claws. A pained groan came from behind a shelf. He moved silently toward it, then stopped. A young man lay on the floor holding a bottle. Can I help you? The stranger slurred. Edward stared. Thin, pale, copper hair, green eyes rimmed red, drunk. Are you the magician who grants wishes? Yes. The stranger extended a hand. Edward pulled him up. The magician swayed. You probably want something. You're sure you're the magician? Pretty sure. He looked mournfully inside his bottle. Whiskey? It's empty. Wonder how that happened. Edward deadpanned. The magician shrugged. He looked nothing like the monster Edward imagined. Yet Edward's wolf sensed something ancient beneath that fragile body. Something powerful. Dangerous. I was told you can grant any wish. The magician noticed Edward looking at a crooked Christmas tree in the corner. I didn't put that there. The tree? It looks terrible, doesn't it? Edward was strangely thrown off. Yes. The magician smiled faintly. Edward hardened himself. You granted someone I know a wish. The smile vanished. Oh, that. Your nymph is freezing people. The magician sighed. So you want me to fix it? Correct. I can't undo another person's wish. So I heard. Edward stepped closer. But you have to grant mine. For a price. What if I wish you dead? The magician tilted his head. Is that your wish? Yes. All right. Edward blinked. No fight. No threat. The magician sank into the couch. I should warn you that I take what you love most. But if I die, you'd get it back. And anyone who wanted my old wishes cancelled could cancel them. Edward's claws lengthened. This should have been easy. Then he hesitated. The magician looked exhausted, almost relieved. Jamie's friend remained frozen because of this magic. Sam's brother, too. Edward could not allow pity to interfere. Do you wish me dead? The magician asked again. Edward hardened his heart. Being alpha meant making choices other people could not. If regret followed, he would carry it. Before Edward spoke, the magician raised one finger. Could you do something first? Edward tensed. A trap. Grab that present. Edward stared. What? Under the tree. Edward approached cautiously. A poorly wrapped silver package sat beneath the branches. The tag read Adrian. Your name? Do you see anyone else? Edward handed it over. Adrian traced the wrapping almost reverently. Aren't you opening it? Shut up. Power vibrated through the command. Edward's mouth closed automatically. Adrian carefully unwrapped the gift. A scarf. Possibly the worst scarf Edward had ever seen. Different yarn. Uneven stitches. One end wider than the other. But a warm human scent clung to it. My assistant made it. Something in Adrian's voice shifted. Edward immediately searched the room. She's not here, Adrian said. She went to spend Christmas with her boyfriend. The hatred in the final word was almost impressive. Adrian pressed the scarf against his face, breathed in, then leaned back. Well? He closed his eyes. Make your wish. Edward stared at the magician. Young, lonely, clutching an ugly handmade scarf like it was the only thing keeping him alive. One strike. That was all Edward needed. Adrian's head tipped back, exposing his throat. Edward's claws remained extended. Seconds passed. Then Edward let them retract. He turned away. His footsteps echoed through the bookstore. He walked through the door and left the magician alive. Chapter 25. The fire burned warmly in Carol's living room. Jamie sat beneath Rebecca's blanket, holding hot chocolate that tasted like childhood. Her family surrounded her. Carol rubbed circles against her back. Rebecca stayed close. Stella had refused to sleep until Aunt Jamie felt better and had finally passed out in a chair. Jamie should have felt safe. Instead, she felt hollow. I'm sorry you thought you needed to lie to us, Carol said. Jamie shook her head. She had not only lied to them, she had lied to herself. Somewhere between Edward's first genuine smile and the moment he had kissed her like he never wanted to stop, Jamie had begun believing the fantasy. Victoria's words remained in her head. You think because he's handsome and buys you things, he can't be a killer. Jamie had trusted the strong arms that made her feel safe. The man who listened patiently to Carol's stories. The man who slipped extra cookies to Stella when he thought nobody noticed. Maybe every warm moment had simply been another performance. Edward had always warned Jamie who he was. Cold, practical, power-driven. Jamie had chosen to see something softer beneath the surface. Now he was planning murder, destroying people's lives for profit. At least you know, Rebecca said. That was the problem. Jamie did not know what to trust. 3 years ago, she had been absolutely certain about Steph. Everyone convinced her that certainty was madness. Now her heart insisted Edward cared. Her mind remembered his voice. See if I care. Which one was real? Mark appeared. Jamie? Someone's here. Rebecca immediately stood. I'll tell him to fuck off. Jamie shook her head. I'll go. She walked downstairs, feeling as though she were approaching an execution. Grandpa Joe stood at the door telling someone Jamie was asleep. Then Jamie saw Edward. Snow dusted his shoulders. His suit from the ball was wrinkled. His amber eyes found her. He looked exactly like the man she had fallen for. That made everything worse. Jamie. Relief softened his face. He stepped inside. Are you all right? His hand lifted toward her. Jamie moved back. Fine. Edward stopped. What are you doing here? I wanted to make sure you were safe. Why? He looked genuinely confused. Because you disappeared. The Grants had you. I'm fine. Edward studied her. Did they hurt you? Jamie almost laughed. Did you do it? Edward froze. What? Did you kill the magician? The color left his face. No. His head lowered. I couldn't. Relief nearly dropped Jamie to her knees. Edward stepped closer. I'll find another way. I promise. I'll help your friend. Okay. Jamie retreated. Edward noticed. Please don't. The hurt on his face looked real. So had the kiss. So had everything else. What's wrong? Nothing. That's a lie. Jamie wrapped her arms around herself. I told my family everything. Edward flinched. Since you already told the Grants I'm not really your mate. Jamie, what I said. It doesn't matter. She looked at him. I suppose you and Richard will work together now. You both need the nymph gone, and then you get to destroy everything his family built. Edward recoiled. Is that what this is about? I'm not upset. A tear escaped. Edward's fingers twitched as if he wanted to wipe it away. You told me you weren't kind. I should have listened. His jaw tightened. I wasn't going to let anyone hurt you. If you're worried about my severance package, don't. Jamie shut the door. Silence. Then she heard Edward's forehead touch the wood. His breathing. Jamie. She sat on the stairs. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about my plans for the resort. You didn't owe me anything. I'm just your fake girlfriend. Is that really how you feel? Jamie's chest hurt. Would it change anything if I didn't? Edward started to answer. Jamie stopped him. We can't be together. Her voice cracked. You need someone who can turn into a wolf. Silence. And I need an actual human being. Someone who hasn't become so obsessed with power that he forgot how to be decent. Anger flared across Edward's face through the small window. You have no idea what it means to have an entire pack depending on you. His voice dropped into an alpha growl. I make the decisions I have to make. Jamie closed her eyes. Keep telling yourself that. She started upstairs. Jamie. His voice followed. She kept climbing. Away from the man she thought she knew. Away from the love she had been foolish enough to believe might be real. Chapter 26. Edward walked through falling snow without knowing where he was going. Jamie's words repeated relentlessly. Worse than the words was the look in her eyes. Like she had finally seen him clearly and wished she had not. Hours earlier, he had awakened with her in his arms. She had trusted him, kissed him, wanted him. Now it was gone. Anger rose first. How dare she judge him without letting him explain? How dare she decide he was some heartless villain? Then Edward asked himself what explanation he could possibly give. Yes, he had spent years systematically destroying Richard Grant's business. Yes, he had walked into a shop intending to murder someone. Yes, he treated livelihoods like pieces on a board, whenever doing so benefited his pack. Jamie had not misunderstood very much. Self-loathing hit harder. What had he become? He wanted desperately to be the man Jamie thought she had seen. The man who could laugh around Christmas cookies. Who could hold Stella? Who deserved Jamie's trust? He wanted mornings in that ridiculous apartment, burnt waffles, holiday films, a future not measured exclusively in territory and profit. But he had spent too many years becoming the alpha everyone needed, the one who never hesitated, never looked back. Snow thickened. His chest felt empty. His wolf whined. Edward sank to his knees. Then he heard music. Soft at first, barely separate from the wind. The song understood his emptiness, promised he was not alone. Edward followed. A figure appeared through the storm. A woman formed from ice and starlight. Beautiful. Impossible. Ancient eyes reflected Edward's loneliness back at him. You're alone too, he whispered. She touched his forehead. The world changed. Edward experienced her memories, waking alone in the mountains, exploring storms, dancing over peaks, then endless silence. Humans arrived carrying grief. Their pain called to her. She tried to comfort them, tried to keep them, but her touch froze their bodies. You have to release them, Edward said. They have people waiting. The nymph's despair shook the storm. Then she would have nobody. Edward understood that fear more than he wanted to. I'll stay. The words came without thought. He touched her crystalline cheek. Take me instead. Her eyes saw everything. His ambition, his cruelty, his loneliness, every wall. And she accepted him. The nymph kissed him. Cold moved into Edward's blood. It should have hurt. Instead, it felt peaceful, warm. Nobody will miss me, Edward thought. His eyes closed. A smile touched his mouth as winter took him. Chapter 27. If Steph were not still frozen beneath the Grant Hotel, Jamie would have stayed in bed. Edward's face haunted her, the pain she had seen when she rejected him. The way he had stood outside her door. Had Jamie gotten it wrong? Again? Her family waited around the breakfast table. Waffles sat in front of Edward's usual empty chair. Jamie's chest tightened. He had been so proud when he finally learned to cook them without completely burning them. Never liked him, Grandpa Joe announced. Rebecca nodded with exaggerated agreement. Good riddance, Carol sniffed. Stella ignored everyone. I liked Uncle Edward. He was handsome like a prince. Rebecca gave her daughter a warning look. Stella smiled at Jamie. He'll come back tomorrow. Jamie almost laughed. That would require a miracle. Exactly. Stella brightened. A Christmas miracle. Tomorrow is Christmas. The adults avoided one another's eyes. Jamie pushed food around her plate. He looked upset when he left. Mark jumped in far too eagerly. He stayed outside for nearly an hour. Carol immediately worried about whether Edward might have gotten sick. Jamie knew shifters rarely got sick. But Edward was searching for the nymph. Alone. Maybe I should check on him. Yes, Carol said much too quickly, then corrected herself. If you want. Jamie put on her coat. She headed toward the Grant Hotel. The weather was strangely beautiful. Blue sky, bright sun, no storm. The change unsettled her. The nymph controlled the weather. So what had changed? A clerk met Jamie in the lobby. Miss Grant would like to see you. He led her into a private office. Jamie entered. Stopped. Steph. Her best friend sat beside the fire. Alive. Breathing. Exactly as she looked 3 years earlier. Jamie ran. She nearly knocked over a table, then wrapped Steph in her arms. Oh my God. Jamie touched her face, her shoulders, her hair. Real. Warm. Jamie? Steph laughed shakily. Who else would I be? Where have you been? Steph frowned. 1 second I was searching for you outside Spiders. Then I woke up in a basement and some blonde woman told me I couldn't leave. Jamie stared. 3 years. Steph did not remember them. Were there others? Yes. They separated us. Victoria entered. I see you found your friend. Her friendliness looked forced. Jamie kept her expression neutral. How about breakfast? Steph nodded. I'd like someone to explain what's happening. Victoria looked at Jamie. Where is he? Who? Edward. His 2 men are here with Dad. Cold moved through Jamie. I don't know. Sam and Owen said Edward was with you. He came over last night. And? He left. Victoria swore. Then where is he? Steph looked between them. Who is Edward? Jamie barely heard. Fear had entered Victoria's voice. Jamie had assumed Edward would be at the hotel. Sam and Owen had assumed he was with Jamie. Nobody knew where he was. Jamie remembered the final things she had said to him, and prayed they were not the last words he would ever hear from her. Interlude. The nymph. He came willingly. Her beautiful, broken wolf. The warmth she had once sensed inside him was gone. Now his soul resembled perfect winter. Still, dark, endless. She circled him. His eyes followed without focus. Despair moved from him in waves. It felt like home. When she touched him, his skin had already begun cooling. The strange heat created by the bright human girl had disappeared. Now he leaned into the nymph's frost as though cold could soothe whatever burned inside him. She kissed his forehead, his cheeks, his mouth. Each kiss removed more warmth. He did not resist. The others always fought winter. This one welcomed it, sought it. She wrapped her arms around him. He sighed like someone finally reaching home. The nymph decided she would keep him. Not frozen like the others. Something different. Suspended in this perfect numb surrender. Her wolf. Her companion. Someone who had finally chosen her cold. Someone who would never leave. Chapter 28. Jamie sat beside Steph in a private hotel lounge. Her friend had endless questions. Jamie could barely think. Edward was missing. Earlier, Owen's furious growl had shaken the windows. "What do you mean, missing?" Victoria snapped back. "It means nobody has seen him since last night, idiot." Everyone turned toward Jamie. She admitted Edward had left her home close to midnight. Owen looked ready to tear her apart. Sam stepped between them. "She's our alpha's mate. Watch how you speak to her." Jamie did not correct him. At that moment, she wanted desperately to have some right to Edward, some connection strong enough to bring him back. Owen and Sam went to track Edward's scent from Jamie's home. Victoria told Jamie to remain with Steph. Hours passed. No news. Jamie stared at a Christmas movie without seeing it. The timing felt impossible to ignore. The nymph released every frozen victim. Edward vanished. Those events had to be connected. "He could be frozen somewhere," Jamie whispered. Steph squeezed her hand. "I've missed something major, haven't I?" Jamie finally looked at her. 3 years. Steph had lost 3 years and did not know. "What happened to me?" Jamie inhaled, then told her everything. Spiders, the storm, the cave, the ice, the nymph. Everyone thinking Jamie was insane. Edward arriving, the investigation, even the fake relationship that had become painfully real. 3 years? Steph whispered. Jamie nodded. "I'm sorry I stopped looking." Steph pulled her into a hug. "You found me." Jamie cried anyway. Eventually she took Steph home. The reaction nearly stopped everyone's hearts. "Stephanie?" Carol dropped her coffee. Rebecca stumbled into Mark. Grandpa Joe crossed himself. Stella barely reacted because she had been too young to remember Steph clearly. Rebecca stared at Jamie. "But you said..." "I told you." For the first time in 3 years, Jamie's family looked at her without that shadow of doubt. The realization moved through them. Jamie had been telling the truth. Carol covered her mouth. Rebecca started crying. Grandpa Joe looked shaken. Jamie should have felt vindicated. Instead, she kept staring at the telephone. No Edward. She called Victoria repeatedly. Rebecca eventually threatened legal action loudly enough that Victoria answered. Still nothing. Jamie broke. "I should never have sent him away." Carol tried to comfort her. Rebecca interrupted. "If Jamie thinks something happened, perhaps we should finally accept that she knows what she's talking about." She gestured toward Steph. "Evidence." Steph nodded loyally. Something inside Jamie loosened. After 3 years, they believed her. If only Edward were there. Grandpa Joe stood. "So he's missing. Why are we sitting here?" Jamie stared. "What?" "We search." Mark stood too. Steph volunteered. Jamie tried refusing. The supernatural danger was real. They did not even know Edward could turn into a wolf. Rebecca crossed her arms. "You'll explain on the way." Stella pumped a fist. "Snow adventure." "You're staying with Grandma." "What?" No arguments. Jamie went upstairs for winter equipment. Her heart felt full and empty at the same time. Her family finally trusted her. The one person who trusted her first was gone. Please be alive. Jamie reached for her bedroom door, opened it, and stepped into a dark bookstore. Chapter 29. Moonlight filtered through filthy windows. Endless shelves surrounded Jamie. Dust, old paper, ancient energy. Voices came from somewhere nearby. "What part of Christmas present do you not understand, Adrian? You open it on Christmas." A tired male voice replied. "In my defense, Iris, you weren't supposed to return until the 27th, so you would never have known." Jamie followed them. A strawberry blonde woman sat in an armchair. A thin young man leaned against a desk. "Excuse me." They looked at her. The woman appeared immediately annoyed. "It's Christmas Eve. Don't people have families?" The man simply looked exhausted. "You're in my shop," he said, "which usually means you want something." Jamie stared. "Are you the magician?" Iris groaned. "That's him." Relief hit Jamie. "You're alive." Adrian frowned. "Why wouldn't I be?" Jamie hesitated. "My friend came here last night." Recognition entered Adrian's eyes. "The tall shifter who wanted me dead?" Iris straightened. "What?" "He isn't a bad person," Jamie rushed to say. "He thought killing you might be the only way to stop the nymph." Iris moved protectively toward Adrian. Jamie continued. "Edward is missing now. I think she took him." Adrian considered. The nymph had released most of her victims. Perhaps she had taken Edward in exchange. "She's lonely," Adrian explained. "Nymphs normally live in groups." Jamie stared. "So she freezes people because she's lonely?" In her own way, she may be trying to connect with people whose emotions resemble hers. Iris looked at Adrian. "You should try connecting sometime." A faint smile appeared on him. Then Adrian looked at Jamie. "You came here because you want to make a wish." Jamie swallowed. "If I wish to find Edward, does that guarantee he comes home safe?" "No. If I wish for him to return, the nymph could keep hurting others." "Yes." Jamie pressed her lips together. "You can't cancel Richard's wish." "No." Iris spoke. "Remember what Richard wished for and what the price was." Adrian's eyes sharpened. He could not directly tell Jamie what to wish. Rules bound his magic. Breaking them could make him sick, Jamie thought. Richard wanted a nymph because he needed tourists to return. He had sacrificed what he valued most. The nymph herself was alone. What if I wish for her to have other nymphs? Adrian blinked. Even Iris's hostility softened. "You would surrender what you love most to give a lonely supernatural creature friends?" "Yes." Jamie's voice became certain. "If she isn't alone, maybe she'll let Edward go." "No guarantee." Jamie's heart tightened. Then she understood what she needed. "I wish for the nymph to have other nymph companions if she agrees to release Edward." Adrian studied her. Power crackled faintly around him. "You understand the cost?" Jamie thought of Edward. The nymph. Whatever precious thing magic would take from her. "Yes." "Are you certain?" Jamie did not hesitate again. "Yes." The shadows around the bookstore seemed to lean closer. "I'm sure." Chapter 30. The snowmobile engines echoed through the mountains. Jamie rode behind Grandpa Joe. Rebecca and Steph followed on another machine. Mark had stayed with Carol and Stella. There was no reason for Stella to risk losing both parents. Steph pointed through the trees. "I remember those peaks. I came this way." Jamie remembered too. 3 years earlier, she had chased Steph's footprints along the same path. Doubted herself every day afterward. Not anymore. The magician had explained the price would not be collected until the wish was fulfilled. That meant Edward still had to be freed. Part of Jamie hoped they would find him somewhere ordinary, safe. Her instincts said otherwise. They passed the twisted pine. Frozen lightning. Jamie recognized the route. Right. She said it with complete certainty. Between her memories and Steph's, they found the cave. Wind carried the song. Edward was somewhere inside. Jamie looked at the people beside her. "I'm going alone." Steph immediately objected. Jamie caught her arm. "In your mind, your breakup still happened yesterday. The nymph is drawn to loneliness." She turned to Mark, then corrected herself, remembering he had stayed home, and faced Grandpa Joe and Rebecca instead. "I can't risk everyone." Grandpa Joe refused. "I'm not letting you enter that mountain alone. If something happens to me, the family needs you." Jamie hugged him. "I get my strength from you." He held her tightly. "You really love him?" Jamie looked toward the cave. "Yes." The answer surprised her only because of how simple it felt. She entered alone. Darkness swallowed the flashlight beam. The walls narrowed. Cold intensified. Jamie walked deeper. The tunnel opened. Her breath stopped. A vast palace of ice stretched before her. Frozen columns disappeared upward. Crystal formations covered the walls. Frozen waterfalls hung silently. Everything was breathtaking. Perfect. Empty. The beauty itself felt lonely. "Edward!" her voice echoed. She moved deeper, then found him. Edward stood in the center of the chamber, motionless, head lowered. For one terrifying moment, Jamie thought he was completely frozen. Then his chest moved. Barely. "Edward." She rushed forward. His skin was pale blue. His eyes, normally amber gold, were empty icy blue. Jamie touched his face. "Look at me." "Nothing. I'm here. I came to take you home." No response. Tears slid down her face and began freezing. "Are you angry with me?" Jamie pressed her hands against his chest. "I was wrong." The confession broke free. "You make Stella laugh. You know how my mother takes her coffee. You learned to make waffles even though you hate cooking, because you knew breakfast makes me happy." Edward remained still. "You believed me when nobody else did." Her voice broke. "You make me feel safe. You make me feel strong." Silence. "I can't lose you." The song began. Jamie turned. A flash of white moved across the cavern. "Who's there?" The music grew louder. Then something moved behind her. Jamie spun. The nymph stood with both arms wrapped around Edward. Possessive. Protective. Her form shimmered like fresh snow beneath sunlight. Her eyes were impossibly old, and unbearably lonely. The nymph stroked Edward's cheek. His breathing weakened. Ice gathered across his eyelashes. "No," Jamie lunged. "You're hurting him." Pain crossed the nymph's features. Not cruelty. Desperation. Jamie stopped herself. "I know you don't mean to." The nymph watched. "You're lonely." One crystalline hand reached toward Jamie. Jamie slowly offered hers. Their fingers touched. Reality dissolved. Jamie felt the nymph's life. Waking alone. Endless mountains. Humans passing through with grief strong enough for her to sense. The nymph approaching because she wanted to share their pain. Her touch freezing them before she could communicate. Then Edward appeared. Wolf. Man. Always alone. His emotions locked beneath iron control. Watching life from behind walls. The nymph recognized herself in him. Jamie pushed her own memories back. Edward laughing while Stella covered him in tinsel. Edward handing Jamie coffee. His rare smile. His arms around her. Warmth. Safety. Connection. He isn't alone. Jamie's tears froze against her cheeks. "Please give him back. I'll take care of him." The nymph looked between them. She loved Edward in her own lonely way. Jamie understood that. "Please." Jamie's voice trembled. "I love him." The admission filled the cavern. The nymph's luminous eyes widened. A single crystalline tear ran down her cheek. Then she nodded. Slowly. Sadly. Her hand left Edward. He collapsed. Jamie caught him. "Edward!" His body was painfully cold, but he breathed. Around them, the cavern erupted in music. Not the mournful song Jamie knew. Joy. 1,000 bright voices. The nymph dissolved into swirling snow. Then another figure appeared. And another. More nymphs emerged throughout the cavern. Dozens. Their voices combined. They spun through the air like living storms of crystal and starlight. The cavern became brilliant. Alive. For one impossible moment, Jamie stood inside something that felt like a star made of winter. Then everything vanished. Jamie blinked. She and Edward were in the town square beneath the giant Christmas tree. Snow fell gently. Edward leaned heavily against her. Warmth had returned to his skin. Jamie. His eyes opened. Gold. Confusion gave way to relief. "You came back." The vulnerability in his voice broke her heart. Edward touched her cheek. For once, no walls remained behind his eyes. Jamie smiled. "I was never gone." And Edward smiled back. Warm, uncontrolled, real. Chapter 31. Christmas morning arrived beneath an impossibly blue sky. Edward stood outside Jamie's door, his breath clouded in the cold. He had stood here before. This time felt different. He knew exactly what he was about to leave behind. Before he knocked, the door opened. Jamie stood there. Her cheeks were pink from the cold. Her smile was gentle. Tired. Good morning. Edward stepped inside. Warm light filled the bar. Christmas music drifted from upstairs. Everything smelled like Jamie's life. Last night remained fragmented. After the nymph released him, Owen and Sam arrived. Then Jamie's family. Confusion followed. Something had changed. The wish. In exchange for giving the lonely nymph companions and freeing Edward, the magician had taken what Jamie loved most. Her sense of belonging. Her regained place within her family. Their memories shifted. They no longer remembered searching the mountain for Edward. They no longer remembered learning Jamie had been right about Steph. Steph now remembered a completely ordinary life during the missing years, and was already home with her grandmother. To Carol, Rebecca, and Grandpa Joe, Jamie was still the woman who had stayed at Pinewood after a mental breakdown. They loved her, but they did not know the truth. "I'm sorry," Edward said. Jamie looked at him. "For what? You finally had them believing you." She shook her head. "Don't be." Her smile was sad. "Steph doesn't remember losing 3 years. She remembers having a job, a life, good things instead of a blank space. Maybe that's better." Edward felt the full weight of what she had sacrificed. "Richard and I will fix this." He touched her hand. "The resort will close. The nymphs can have the mountain without humans constantly entering their territory." Jamie searched his face. "You aren't taking everything from Richard, are you?" Edward tensed automatically, then realized there was no accusation. She already expected his answer. "No." He smiled faintly. "We're going to work together, the way we should have from the beginning." Jamie nodded. "And Victoria? What about her? Do you see yourself combining the packs, taking her as your mate?" Edward studied Jamie's deliberately neutral expression. Her scent was far less neutral. "No." Her eyes rose. "That isn't what I want." Silence stretched. Jamie looked away. "So this is goodbye." She gestured toward the bar. "Unless you want to stay for Christmas." Edward imagined it. Carol forcing food onto his plate. Grandpa Joe arguing about football. Stella tangling him in tinsel. Jamie beside him. "I wish I could." And he meant it. "But I've been away too long. The pack needs me. We need to handle the resort closure. Boundaries. Business." "Of course." Jamie smiled tightly. "You're busy." The words hurt. Edward wished circumstances were different. Wished Jamie were a shifter. Wished his world were safe enough for her. Then Jamie spoke. "When I met Adrian, I thought about trying to save you without using a wish." Edward waited. "If I could have kept the wish, I considered using it to become a shifter." His heart stopped. "So I could be with you." "Jamie." "But I realized something." She looked directly at him. "For 3 years, other people told me who I was. They made me doubt my own memories, my own mind. I stopped knowing what to trust." She swallowed. "I want to be myself again." Edward said nothing. "I don't want to become something I'm not even for you." Pain struck him. Then pride. Admiration. Edward took her hand. "You shouldn't have to." His grip tightened. "You are perfect exactly as you are." Jamie's eyes filled. "Don't ever change for anyone." They stood in that bittersweet silence. Then Jamie reached behind her. "I got you something." A square package wrapped in red and gold. "Don't open it until later." Edward accepted it. "Merry Christmas." He walked away. Every step felt heavier. The farther he moved from Jamie, the colder everything seemed. He had work, responsibilities, a pack that needed him. A car waited outside the hotel. Owen sat inside, surrounded by documents. The moment Edward entered, Owen began listing problems. Richard's conditions for closing Pinewood. Southern boundary disputes. Backlogged decisions. Edward answered automatically. Sam sat quietly in front. They reached the railway station. Boarded. Owen continued talking. Edward watched the snowy landscape pass. Eventually, Owen left for food. Silence came. Then Sam spoke. You know, any one of us could have made that wish. Edward turned. We're shifters. Protecting humans is supposed to be our responsibility. Instead, Jamie sacrificed something important to save you. Edward looked away. You're an idiot, Alpha. Edward's eyebrows rose. Sam rarely spoke to him that way. You'll never find another person who would give up what matters most to them for you without hesitation, not in 1,000 years. She didn't do it for me. Even Edward heard how weak it sounded. She felt sorry for the nymph. Sam stared. Edward continued. She's simply selfless. Sam's expression almost became painful. Edward reached for Jamie's gift. He unwrapped it carefully. A handmade recipe book. Carol's hot chocolate. Rebecca's sugar cookies. Grandpa Joe's disastrous eggnog. All written in Jamie's messy handwriting. Then Edward found photographs. Him watching football with Mark and Grandpa Joe. Edward covered in flour while baking with Carol. Laughing. Relaxed. Happy. He barely recognized himself. Notes filled the margins. Come back for New Year's. Next time we'll teach you proper football. Then, an envelope fell out. Edward opened it. Stella's handwriting covered a small card. 2 stick figures decorated the page. One tall and frowning. One small and smiling. Dear Uncle Edward, thank you for making Aunt Jamie happy again. She used to be very sad, but now when nobody is looking, she looks at you and smiles. I hope you spend Christmas with us again, because Christmas should be spent with the people you love, and Aunt Jamie really loves you. Merry Christmas. Stella. Edward stared at the words. His eyes burned. He looked up at Sam. Do you really think? Edward swallowed. Do you think Jamie made the wish because she cares about me? Sam looked like he might attack his Alpha. She did it because she loves you. Edward went still. Everyone knows it except apparently you. But she's human. So? She couldn't live with my pack safely. So? I wouldn't be good for her. Edward's voice became quieter. I would make her life harder. Sam leaned back. And she still chose you. Silence. So with all due respect, Alpha, what the hell are you doing on this train? Edward looked out the window. Snow-covered trees raced past. For the first time, the answer was embarrassingly simple. I have no idea. Chapter 32. Christmas Day filled Jamie's bar with noise. Every table was occupied. Tourists passed roast turkey, mashed potatoes, and cranberry sauce. Someone had started another terrible version of Jingle Bells. Jamie moved between bottles and beer taps with practiced speed. Merry Christmas, crazy Jamie. Dave raised his beer. Jamie smiled. Right back at you. She made a mental note to replace his next drink with water. The door opened constantly. Skiers arrived covered in snow. People ordered hot cider. The whole place felt loud, warm, chaotic, perfect. Jamie's family occupied a table in the corner. Grandpa Joe was telling some story. Stella stole pie whenever she thought nobody watched. Mark approached the bar. If you don't sit down and eat Rebecca's mashed potatoes, I'll never hear the end of it. He stole Jamie's dish towel. Jamie narrowed her eyes. So they're terrible and you need help finishing them? You didn't hear that from me. Laughing, Jamie joined the table. The potatoes were indeed terrible. She did not care. Her family did not remember everything that happened. They did not remember learning about wolves, or nymphs, or following Jamie into the mountains. They did not remember finally seeing proof that Jamie had been right. The magician's price had rewritten those pieces into something easier. But Jamie remembered. And strangely, the weeks with Edward had still given her something. Watching him discover family meals and ridiculous traditions had reminded Jamie how valuable her own family was. Yes, Carol hovered. Rebecca judged. Grandpa Joe protected. But they loved Jamie. For now, that was enough. Almost. There was still an Edward-shaped emptiness inside her. Jamie remembered him learning breakfast recipes, listening whenever she spoke, smiling only when he forgot to guard himself. She sighed over her mashed potatoes. Plenty of fish in the sea, Rebecca offered. Maybe you and Edward will fix things, Carol added hopefully. Mom, Jamie groaned. It was never going to work. Why? Grandpa Joe asked. Because we're different. How? Jamie stared. How exactly did one explain that the man she loved could transform into a giant wolf and believed she was too vulnerable to live among his pack? I want someone caring, Jamie said. Someone supportive. Someone who trusts me and takes me seriously. Stella frowned. So, Uncle Edward? Everyone went silent. Jamie sighed. And Edward wants someone who could survive his world. Someone who belonged there. Something different. Stella remained unconvinced. You need a Christmas miracle. Jamie patted her head. Honey, miracles don't work like that. The table became quiet. Everyone started giving Jamie pitying looks. Oh, stop. She waved her hands. I'm fine. The looks worsened. Yes, Edward was great. And maybe I wished things could have worked differently. Jamie caught herself on the word wish. But life goes on. She tried smiling. Plenty of fish. Deep down, Jamie had no idea how she was supposed to enjoy kissing ordinary men after falling for someone who could literally become a wolf. But she could try. Seriously, stop looking at me like I'm going to cry. Carol placed a hand over hers. Jamie felt a tear slide down her cheek. Okay, maybe I'm already crying. Rebecca's eyes suddenly widened. She seemed to be signaling something behind Jamie. Jamie ignored her. I'm fine about Edward leaving. A throat cleared behind her. The entire family stared past Jamie. She slowly turned. Edward stood there. Snow dusted his coat. His dark hair was slightly disordered. He looked impossibly regal, and strangely uncertain at the same time. Edward! Jamie jumped up. You're here. His eyes moved immediately to her tears. Edward lifted one hand and wiped one away with his thumb. You're crying. Carol made an excited noise behind them. Jamie ignored it. What are you doing here? Edward looked almost nervous. He straightened, then took Jamie's hand. A little bird informed me that Christmas is supposed to be spent with the people you love. Jamie's heart stopped. Edward continued. So I was hoping you might let me celebrate with you. His eyes flicked toward the packed bar. Unless you're too busy. She's not, Mark shouted. Jamie laughed through her tears. I'm not. She gripped Edward's hand. I'd love you to stay. Edward smiled. Not the controlled smile he used for business. Not the charming one he used to manipulate rooms. The real one. His hand settled against Jamie's lower back. He moved closer. I'm afraid I didn't bring you a present. Edward actually looked ashamed. Jamie laughed, then rose onto her toes and kissed him. Cheers exploded through the bar. Glasses clinked. Christmas music played over the speakers. When Jamie finally pulled back, she kept her forehead against his. You're my present. Edward looked at her with so much happiness that she forgot everyone was watching. Rebecca's voice rang from behind them. Unwrap him now. Jamie burst out laughing. Edward pulled her into another kiss. His arm held her firmly. Around them, the bar glowed beneath Christmas lights. Family laughed. Tourists cheered. Snow fell beyond the windows. And Stella's triumphant little voice rose above them all. What did I tell you? She beamed. Christmas miracle.